Chapter 312. Foundation Establishment, Yin Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, lease unexpectedly, at the final moment of his foundation establishment, the spirit-nurturing energy unexpectedly emerged, allowing the great sun essence and Tai Yin moon essence to merge perfectly. He could feel that before this moment, the great sun essence and the Tai Yin moon essence were not harmonious, failing to achieve balance. It was under the influence of this spirit-nurturing energy that they could. Moreover, he vaguely felt that this spirit-nurturing energy was even more formidable than the great sun essence and even Xiaoxia's Tai Yin moon essence. I wonder what my Tao foundation can transform into under this power? Lu Chongqing watched the seven-colored jade disc-like Tao foundation in the Dan Lake humming and trembling, witnessing his own foundation base recondensing. As for what kind of foundation base his original seven-colored jade disc-like base would turn into, Lu Chongqing had no idea. After all, Xiaoxia had only roughly explained a few types of foundation bases to him. But when it comes to foundation bases, even if they are the same, they vary based on different people's cultivation techniques and conditions. One can't generalize. However, Lu Chongqing knew that he now needed a massive amount of spiritual energy to support the recondensation of his foundation base. Instantly, his entire being became like a black hole, wholeheartedly devouring the nature's spiritual energy from all directions, refining the spiritual energy and gathering it into his foundation base. Rumble! In the Dan Lake, the foundation table shaped like a seven-colored jade disc grew brighter and more dazzling. In this process, his seven luminaries Tao foundation, due to the sun and moon sectors being devoured by the yin-yang fish, gradually turned its seven colors into five. And after swallowing the sun and moon sectors, the small yin-yang fish that had grown significantly larger swam out from the jade disc, circulating around it. At this moment, the new Tao foundation began to slowly take shape. The foundation base with its yin-yang 5 elements light slowly circulated, filled with profound mysteries, and gently rose from the Dan Lake. Boom, boom, boom. As the foundation table rose, Lu Changsheng's heart involuntarily started to beat faster. His meridians expanded, his bones creaked noisily, and his blood surged like great rivers and oceans. Each heartbeat brought forth an increase in his entire Bodhis energy, growing in might from inside out. Boom! Eventually, Lu Changsheng's foundation table lifted off from the Dan Lake and spiraled to his Qi ocean core. The foundation table displayed colors of the 5 elements, surrounded by swirling yin-yang energies. In an instant, rays of light burst forth from the foundation base, radiating so intensely they almost penetrated his body. Accompanied by the vast rays of light, an indescribable mana spread out at this moment, causing Lu Changsheng's hair to flutter without any wind. Lifting the foundation base, shedding his mortal coil. This massive force of the yin-yang 5 elements circulated within Lu Changsheng's body. It cleansed his marrow and polished his skin, scouring every inch of flesh and muscle. Lu Chongqing, who cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, already had an immaculate body, but at this moment, still a considerable amount of impurities were expelled. Time passed no one knew how long. As the inner brilliance dissipated, the transformation ended, and Lu Chongqing opened his eyes. Foundation establishment succeeded. His pupils seemed to circulate with the yin-yang energies, emitting blinding rays of light. The impurities on his body dispersed, releasing a refreshing fragrance. Is this what foundation establishment feels like? Lu Chongqing looked at his pale translucent body, now reborn from bone to flesh. Feeling the power filling his entire body, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Foundation establishment was always a small goal he had strived for. Now he had finally taken that step. In this world, he could at least protect himself to a certain degree. With my current strength, I could probably kill my former self with a slap of my hand. Lu Chongqing felt an unprecedented surge of power within him, and he thought to himself. After his breakthrough in foundation establishment, he felt his mana had increased more than tenfold. Moreover, at the moment of his breakthrough, the profound origin bead within him also spun wildly, inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. It gradually transformed the stored spiritual power into mana. His internal mana had nearly tripled from its original level. Right then, Lu Chongqing felt better and more confident than ever before. Even if he faced the young man in the red robe from before, he could fight against him. As for killing him, it was hard to say. After all, his licking the packet revealed that the opponent had a backup. And he had just broken through foundation establishment, still lacking the appropriate techniques for the foundation establishment stage. My divine sense is almost at 18 zhang. That's my only weakness now. Lu Chongqing then checked the status of his divine sense. Normal cultivators just breaking through to foundation establishment typically have a divine sense of around 10 zhang. His 18 feet stature, although far surpassing the average level, was indeed a weak point compared to his physical body and mana. Immediately after, Lu Chongqing looked towards the Dao platform within his Qi Ocean Dantian. The Dao platform was like a jade disc, exhibiting 5 colors, surrounded by the yin-yang energies. Yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, so this is my Dao foundation. Lu Chongqing, gazing at his own Dao platform, displayed a somewhat odd expression on his face. Upon seeing his Dao foundation, he instinctively knew the information about his own foundation. The originally powerful and dominant 7 luminaries foundation base, after transforming into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, not only had more formidable mana. The supreme yin and supreme yang, under the fusion of the great sun essence, the supreme yin moon essence, and the spirit nurturing energy, had turned into the yin-yang energies. These yin-yang energies had 2 effects. One was that they doubled the effectiveness of his dual cultivation. The other was, by using dual cultivation, to consume his own yin-yang energies to repair and refine someone else's Dao foundation. Dao foundations are categorized as fragmented, flawed, flaw-free, and perfect. His yin-yang energies could repair the flaws and fractures found in fragmented and flawed foundations, ultimately refining them into flaw-free ones. This effect could be said to be exceedingly against the heavens. Even though Lu Chongqing did not have much understanding of foundation establishment, he knew that all heavenly treasures capable of repairing Dao foundation flaws were immensely precious and rarely seen. And the fact that his consumption of yin-yang energies could repair such flaws, even refining them into flawless foundations, was truly against the heavens. This Dao foundation effect, is it not tempting me to switch cultivation techniques? Lu Chongqing, watching the yin-yang energies flowing on his Dao platform, twitched the corners of his mouth. He thought about the yin-yang harmony technique he possessed. A peripheral sect-level cultivation technique that primarily focused on dual cultivation. Of course, if he switched to the yin-yang harmony technique, relying on the effects of the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, his cultivation level would progress rapidly. But he only allowed himself to think about it. The yin-yang harmony technique was far inferior to the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture. Although the cultivation speed was much faster, the foundation would be much weaker. Moreover, now that he had established his foundation, switching to another cultivation technique would be very troublesome. If he really switched to another cultivation technique, he might lose 30 to 50% of his cultivation level. However, the second effect of the yin-yang energies made Lu Chongqing feel quite pleased. He was well aware that among his current wives and concubines, hardly a few could achieve foundation establishment. At the moment, only Lu Miaoge was hopeful for foundation establishment. But even if she succeeded, it was very likely she would have a flawed foundation. Forging a flawless foundation would be difficult. In such a situation, his Dao foundation effect came into play. If his wives and concubines could forcibly establish their foundations in the future, even if the foundations were fragmented, he could still lend a hand. If I were to make this effect known, I fear countless female cultivators attempting foundation establishment would be willing to present themselves at my doorstep, even willing to have children for it. After all, being able to refine and repair a foundation is also a chance for core formation. But such things definitely cannot be revealed. Otherwise, I might end up being captured by some old monster and used as a tool. Lu Chongqing thought to himself. He also knew this matter absolutely should not be revealed carelessly. Now that I've established my foundation, shouldn't I compose a celebratory poem to enhance the occasion? After checking his own condition, an idea suddenly occurred to Lu Chongqing. Just as he was racking his brains, ready to come up with a celebratory poem, he suddenly sensed that something was off with Xiaofan beside him. Lu Chongqing turned his gaze towards Xiaofan, who was as cold and pure as the Guanghan fairy, with jade-like skin and bones, bereft of any thread, attempting foundation establishment. Noticing that she was at the point of condensing her Dao foundation. But something seemed amiss with her condition. The condensation of the Dao foundation appeared to have encountered some problems. Lack of spiritual energy. Lu Chongqing immediately realized what the problem was. Logically, a second-rank high-grade cave dwelling should have been sufficient for the successful foundation establishment of both of them. But just now, during his breakthrough, he had condensed the 7 luminaries foundation base, then transformed it, recondensing the 7 luminaries foundation base into the Yin-Yang 5 elements foundation base. At the same time, the profound origin bead inside his body was frantically absorbing spiritual energy. It had nearly depleted over half of the cave dwelling's nature's spiritual energy. And at this moment, Xiaofan also began her foundation establishment. Xiaofan herself was condensing a perfect foundation base, which required far more of nature's spiritual energy than the average person. In this circumstance, the lack of sufficient spiritual energy from the cave dwelling made it difficult to support Xiaofan's successful condensation of her Tao foundation. Chapter 313. The idea of establishing one's own family under one. Xiaofan, unclothed and composed, sat cross-legged with a dignified and cool expression on her face. Reading N novel Cool. M. She hadn't expected that, at the critical moment of foundation establishment, she would encounter a shortage of external spiritual energy. But once foundation establishment reached this step, it was impossible to stop, nor could she afford to. With a graceful motion of her hand, a heap of spirit stones clattered out from the storage bag, absorbing the spiritual energy within the stones. Lu Chongqing could tell that most of these spirit stones were lower-grade spirit stones. Only a few were middle-grade spirit stones. This was normal, after all. Xiaofan, no matter how wealthy, was merely an energy-refining cultivator. Without hesitation, Lu Chongqing took out the hundreds of middle-grade spirit stones he had obtained from the red-robed youth. With a strong squeeze, he crushed each middle-grade spirit stone into powder, causing the spiritual energy to disperse. Then, another porcelain bottle appeared. Shi Yu, Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Chongqing poured the inferior Foundation Establishment Elixir from the bottle. He could see that Xiaofan had not taken any Foundation Establishment Elixirs. Although he did not know why she hadn't prepared any Foundation Establishment Elixirs, given the current situation, he felt it was necessary to take one for safety's sake, even if it was an inferior one. Despite being inferior, at least it was better than nothing. Moreover, the inferior Foundation Establishment Elixir was only less effective in harmonizing the 3 aspects and transforming the absorbed spiritual energy. It could only increase the chances of successful foundation establishment by 10%. As for protecting the meridians and dantian, its efficacy was the same as a regular foundation establishment elixir. It could ensure that a foundation establishment failure would not result in a backlash. Foundation establishment elixir? Xiaofan's beautiful eyes widened slightly, surprised to see the foundation establishment elixir in Lu Chongqing's hand. She had seen Lu Chongqing take one himself. She hadn't expected that Lu Chongqing would still have another. After all, even within Qingyun's sect's inner sect, obtaining a foundation establishment elixir was not easy. Seeing the concerned look on Lu Chongqing's face, Xiaofan's calm heart rippled slightly. "No need," she said softly. Her cultivation of the supreme forgetful love technique was crucial for her foundation, depending on her state of mind. As long as her state of mind reached perfection, she was certain to succeed in foundation establishment without relying on external objects. That was why, despite her status, she could have applied for a foundation establishment elixir but chose not to. Furthermore, it was just an external deficiency of nature's spiritual energy. It was not a complete absence of spiritual energy, which did not mean her foundation establishment was doomed to fail. Therefore, under these circumstances, she did not want to waste Lu Chongqing's foundation establishment elixir and owe him a favor. Concentrate on your foundation establishment. Despite Xiaofan's resistance, Lu Chongqing insisted, slapping his hand down. He pushed the foundation establishment elixir directly into Xiaofan's mouth. While the elixir was precious, in his view, things were made to be used. Given Xiaofan's precarious situation, if the elixir could stabilize matters, he certainly wouldn't hold back. Otherwise, if Xiaofan failed her foundation establishment, he would feel uneasy about it. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir entered her stomach, Xiaofan immediately felt the power of the medicine increasing the spiritual pressure around her, accelerating the conversion and absorption of the surrounding spiritual energy. As she watched Lu Chongqing crush the middle-grade spirit stones one by one, she pressed her lips together, sighed softly in her heart, and closed her eyes to concentrate on foundation establishment. Thinking of breaking ties with me that easily? Not so simple. Thinking you could leave before birthing 3 children. Lu Chongqing clearly understood Xiaoxia's thoughts. Her affection for him was probably genuine, as was her desire to repay him for his assistance in cultivation and saving her life, thereby untangling their relationship. In such a case, how could Lu Chongqing simply let go? Who in the world is undergoing foundation establishment? The amount of spiritual energy they're drawing in is terrifying. Looking at this, foundation establishment should have ended by now, so why is it still continuing? This is going to affect the spiritual energy in our area. Could it be that this person is condensing the legendary perfect foundation base? Even with a perfect foundation base, the amount of spiritual energy involved wouldn't be this massive, nor continue for so long, right? The cultivators near Core Peak, looking at the vortex of spiritual energy swirling above, were bewildered with amazement and confusion. What's happening? The vortex of spiritual energy above Shiyu Junior Sister's cave abode is still swirling, and the spiritual pressure is starting to rise again. That vortex of spiritual energy weakened just a moment ago, with a faint rosy glow spreading through it. Evidence that someone had succeeded in foundation establishment. If that's the case, why is the spiritual pressure rising again as if someone is forming their Tao foundation anew? Could it be 2 people are attempting foundation establishment simultaneously? Inside cave abode E, a young man looked toward the not-too-distant cave abode Jia, where a vortex of spiritual energy swirled above the sky, and frowned slightly. Report to Master Du, this number 9 Jia cave abode is rented by Fairy Shiyu of Kaiyun Peak, the steward at the cave abode rental place said to the gray-robed elder in front of him, with a face showing signs of age and a hint of the demeanor of an immortal, speaking respectfully. Kaiyun Peak, Xiaoxia? This elder was the false core immortal stationed at Qingyun Market. Seeing this unusual activity of spiritual energy, he also came to inquire who was undergoing foundation establishment. After all, the commotion of this foundation establishment was indeed a bit too large. Were it not for Qingyun Market having a large spirit vein, and that Core Peak spirit vein reached 2nd rank top grade, such intense activity of spiritual energy could affect the operation of the marketplace's great formation. Yes, immortal. At that time, Fairy Shiyu was renting the cave abode along with a close friend and indicated it would be used for a realm breakthrough, stated the steward respectfully, without concealing anything. Although his cultivation level was only Qi refinement, having served as a steward in Qingyun Market for many years, he had seen many people attempt foundation establishment. He had a rough guess about the situation based on the abnormality of the spiritual energy, and knowing that Xiaoxia had rented the cave abode with another person. Chapter 314, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family. Master Du nodded slightly upon hearing this. He roughly understood that Xiaoxia came to Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment with a close friend. Otherwise, given Xiaoxia's situation, there was no need for her to come to the Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment. After understanding the situation, he didn't continue to inquire further. He transformed into a rainbow light and departed. And he ordered that no one should approach this cave dwelling, to avoid disturbing the situation inside. Time slowly passed. No one knew how much time had gone by. The vortex of nature's spiritual energy above the cave dwelling gradually dissipated, with faint colored clouds permeating the air. It's done. In the bedroom, Lu Chongqing looked at the enticingly beautiful jade-like body of Xiaoxia before him. Seeing the foundation establishment's spiritual pressure surging around her, he immediately knew that Xiaoxia's foundation establishment had been successful. A look of joy appeared on his face too. After all, he had worried because the deficiency of nature's spiritual energy had been caused by him. He feared that Xiaoxia's foundation establishment might fail. However, just at that moment, a crack sound came from within Xiaoxia's body. Xiaoxia spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Shiyu, what's wrong with you? Lu Chongqing, seeing Xiaoxia vomiting blood, was taken aback and immediately supported her, asking with concern. He didn't know what was going on with her. Why would she vomit blood and have her qi in disorder just after completing her foundation establishment? I'm fine. Xiaoxia's beautiful eyes opened, revealing a complicated expression. Her supreme forgetful love technique had succeeded, yet it hadn't. Or rather, under Lu Changsheng's influence, her state of mind ultimately wasn't perfect. There was a flaw. This caused her newly established perfect Tao foundation to crack at the base due to the flaw in her state of mind. A vast amount of spiritual energy leaked out from the crack in the foundation base, overflowing from her body. "You're in this state and still you say you're fine," Lu Chongqing retorted with slight annoyance. He immediately grabbed Xiaoxia's wrist, preparing to check her physical condition. Normally, such close contact between cultivators to check each other's condition was considered rash. But over the past year, Lu Chongqing and Xiaoxia had become very close. At this time, he naturally didn't care about such rashness or gender differences. Just as he grabbed Xiaoxia's wrist, Lu Chongqing sensed her body undergoing a transformation under the purification of the foundation base. But at the same time, spiritual energy was leaking out. "Because my state of mind wasn't perfect, my Tao foundation became damaged," Xiaoxia said softly, pursing her lips and speaking in a low voice as she saw the slightly angry look on Lu Chengsheng's face, choosing not to hide it anymore. Maybe it was the flaw in her state of mind that made her less aloof when facing Lu Chongqing. "The foundation base is damaged?" Lu Chongqing furrowed his brows slightly upon hearing this. He immediately sent a strand of his divine sense into Xiaoxia's body. Xiaoxia did not resist Lu Chengsheng's actions. Instantly, Lu Chengsheng's divine sense accessed the brilliantly shining foundational base in Xiaoxia's dantian. The foundational base was moon-white in its entirety. In the center of the base, a faint cyan moon circulated. It was Xiaoxia's supreme mysterious moon Tao foundation. But at this moment, this perfect jade-like moon-white foundation base had a clear crack from which spiritual energy was leaking out. "Even with a crack, Shiyu, your foundational base is still considered a perfect one," Lu Chongqing reassured her. "I wonder if my yin-yang energies can repair this crack?" Lu Chongqing, observing the obvious crack on the foundation base, thought of his yin-yang energies. It seemed somewhat fortuitous in his heart. He had just condensed the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. The yin-yang energies of the foundational base could repair and refine the base. And now, the exact problem Xiaoxia's base had was a crack in her perfect foundation, not an innate flaw. "Don't worry, just complete your rebirth and solidify your cultivation level. I have a way to repair your foundation." Lu Chongqing withdrew his divine sense, exhaling gently and saying to Xiaoxia. Using yin-yang energies to repair and refine a foundational base was his secret, not to be divulged to outsiders. But as Xiaoxia was his consort, Lu Chongqing naturally would not keep it concealed. Moreover, he was eager to see how effective his yin-yang energies were. Repair the foundational base?" Xiaoxia's typically cold and pale face showed a trace of surprise. She did not expect Lu Chongqing to say he could repair her foundational base. She was clearly aware that the heaven and earth treasures capable of fixing a foundational base were exceedingly rare. Furthermore, her foundation base was a perfect one, cracked due to flaws in her state of mind and cultivation technique, making it incredibly difficult to mend. But at that moment, as her foundational base pulsated within her body, undergoing transformation, she didn't give it much thought and simply nodded slightly, collecting her mental spirit and closed her eyes again to begin the marrow cleansing after the consolidation of the foundation base and her rebirth. Seeing Xiaoxia closing her eyes again, Lu Chongqing started to regulate his breath in meditation, solidifying his cultivation level. At the time, he had just had a breakthrough, and due to Xiaoxia's situation, he had been too preoccupied to solidify his cultivation level. So the cave dwelling returned to a state of silence. In the blink of an eye, half a month went by. Phew! Lu Chongqing opened his eyes and exhaled lightly. Having solidified his cultivation level over half a month, he felt his aura become calm and settled. After his breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, not only his cultivation level but also his physical body and presence had become more easily concealed. Unless he engaged in battle, it would be difficult for others to discern his level. Could this jade pendant be a unique treasure after all? That it can prevent even a foundation establishment cultivator from discerning the depth at a glance. As Lu Chongqing observed his own aura, he discovered that the jade pendant given to him by that nascent soul female cultivator still had the effect of concealing his aura, to the point that he himself couldn't fully discern it. Now that I have established my foundation, if I wanted, I could probably go live off a woman's resources. Chapter 315. The idea of establishing one's own family. Lu Chongqing chuckled inwardly. He remembered that after he achieved the foundation establishment stage, the nascent soul female cultivator had said she would give him an opportunity. Although she hadn't specified what the opportunity was, he could guess its nature. However, Lu Chongqing had no such intentions in his heart. He, Lu Chongqing, had reached this point through his tireless efforts, day and night. Why would he cling to someone's coattails or live off others? Moreover, he was aware that, as a nascent soul immortal, she would definitely not bear his children. In such a case, one couldn't be as comfortable as when at home, with a wife and children around a warm stove. No, what sweeter is living off one's own efforts, step by step. System. Watching Xiaofan still meditating with her eyes closed, Lu Chongqing silently uttered in his mind. A system interface appeared before his eyes. Name, Lu Chongqing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain. Cultivation level, Foundation Establishment First Layer. Lifespan, 32/269. Talent, 5th grade Spiritual Root, Gongjin Body Constitution, Medium grade Spiritual Body. Cultivation Techniques, 100 Refinements Treasure Body Art, 7 Luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture, Yin-Yang Harmony Technique, Immortal Beauty Technique. Spells, 7 Luminary Sword Light, 7 Luminary Sword Shield, 7 Luminary Sword Escape. Items, 9 Treasure Jade Rui, Golden Light Brick Talisman Treasure, Black Dragon Magical Bead, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, Life Substituting Talisman, Profound Origin Bead, 2nd rank Puppet. Skills, Talisman Making, 2nd rank, Puppet, 2nd rank, Spirit Slaughterer, 2nd rank. Spiritual Pets, 9 Netherhound, Peach Blossom Goo, 6 Winged Golden Silkworm. Offspring, 115 of 117. Lifespan has increased by 109 years. Is it because of the perfect foundation base? Lu Chongqing examined the changes in his lifespan record. Normally, breaking through from energy refinement to foundation establishment increases one's lifespan by 100 years. This lifespan can fluctuate according to the cultivation method practiced or the condition of the body. For someone like him, practicing a sword scripture and having increased his lifespan by 109 years upon breaking through to foundation establishment is already quite exceptional. At the age of 32, although not the pinnacle, foundation establishment is still the first step on the ladder. However, I should still keep my cultivation level hidden from the public eye as much as possible and bide my time for some years. Otherwise, as a mere 9th grade spiritual root son-in-law of the Lu family, having reached foundation establishment at 32, I will surely attract the wrong kind of attention and trouble. Lu Chongqing murmured to himself, considering his current age. In the cultivation world, there's never a shortage of lucky ones who get an opportunity and manage to reach foundation establishment by chance. However, such lucky ones do not necessarily continue to be fortunate. Once his cultivation level is exposed, there's a high chance of attracting trouble. Therefore, unless necessary, Lu Chongqing plans to maintain the appearance of an energy-refining cultivator. Regarding children, I've fallen behind over the years. I need to catch up earnestly now. Lu Chongqing then turned his attention to his offspring record. In the last few years, due to various reasons such as outstanding childbirth and Xiaofan's cultivation, childbearing was delayed, increasing the count by only 11 children. And my children are growing up and need to start cultivating, so I should really focus on that. Lu Chongqing thought about his eldest son, Lu Xianji, who had already completed taking in qi. Initially, he had put some thought into Lu Xianji. But as the number of children increased and he became busier, he barely provided guidance. For instance, he wouldn't have known about Lu Xianji completing the qi intake if not for the system notification. With a thought, Lu Xianzi's information appeared. Name, Lu Xianji. Lifespan, December 89. Talent, 9th grade spiritual root. Cultivation level, qi refinement first layer. Alas, 9th grade spiritual root. Lu Chongqing sighed softly upon seeing his son's spiritual root grade. As someone who had risen from a 9th grade to a 5th grade spiritual root, he understood the gap between the different grades of spiritual roots only too well. His son, without significant opportunities, had little chance past energy refinement late stage. But being my son is a great opportunity in itself. Once I possess the strength to establish my own family spirit land, with the heavenly longevity technique, even core formation or nascent soul stages are within reach. Lu Chongqing exhaled lightly. He again considered the matter of establishing his own family. Having spent so many years on Qingzhou Mountain, and with a wife and children, he certainly felt somewhat at home there. Indeed, he counted Qingzhou Mountain as half his home. However, he never ceased to consider establishing his own cultivation family independently. After all, Lu Chongqing never truly considered himself entirely a part of the Lu family. He merely saw Qingzhou Mountain as half his home. Therefore, his children, as per his arrangements, hadn't completely integrated into the Lu family either. Because Lu Chongqing was acutely aware that in the future, he and his children were destined to walk a path different from the Lu family's. If he remained with the Lu family, as his strength increased, he would probably become the Lu family ancestor and take control of the family. But Lu Chongqing had no such wish. Becoming the Lu family ancestor and taking charge would mean assuming a responsibility. And he didn't want to shoulder that responsibility. His own children, he was willing to put in the effort, energy, and resources to cultivate each one of them. Even if they had ninth-grade spiritual roots, he was willing to spend the time, energy, and resources. But he couldn't possibly do the same for the Lu family disciples. And if he stayed with the Lu family, becoming their ancestor, he couldn't simply ignore family matters. So, in Lu Changsheng's view, taking his children to establish their own family clan was the best choice. He wouldn't forget about the Lu family either. Once capable, he would provide whatever assistance he could afford to help them. After all, a favor of a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. Moreover, considering his current relationship with the Lu family, it was impossible for him to sever ties completely. Chapter 316. Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. _1. Now that I've achieved foundation establishment, I can consider establishing a family clan. Lu Changsheng's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about establishing a family clan. In the world of cultivation, the strength of foundation establishment couldn't be considered very high. However, it was enough to preside over a region and establish a cultivation family. As with the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain and many surrounding families, once foundation establishment was achieved, one would become the ancestral elder of the family. To establish a cultivation family, the first thing needed is a spiritual vein-blessed land. Without a spirit land, talking about establishing a family is nothing but a joke. Over the years, Lu Chongqing had learned quite a bit about family affairs. He knew a few basic ways to acquire a spirit land. The first method was the simplest and most direct. It was to seize and occupy other spirit lands by force. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the cultivation world. However, few who chose to establish family forces did so. One reason was, if not done thoroughly, it left the possibility of future troubles. Another was that seizing spirit lands without cause and establishing a family greatly affected one's reputation and credibility. And morally it was indefensible, easily drawing the condemnation and even aggression from other cultivators and forces. After all, if you are alone, you can disregard the rules. But when you establish a family and have dependents, you need to consider your reputation and the family's standing. If you act without rules and are too overbearing, leading to a poor reputation, it's not only likely to cause trouble, but also could result in other cultivators and family forces being unwilling to associate with you. In the cultivation world, most who choose to establish family forces do so because they have no hope in cultivation. Therefore, they transfer their time and energy to cultivating successors, aiming for the stable development of the family's foundation. If a family force is established through forceful occupation and as a result gains a bad reputation, it is bound to hinder the family's development. For instance, when the Lu family and the Bai family attacked Red Leaf Valley, they had a justified cause, holding grievances that stretched over decades. The Yu family and the Zheng family would also find a reason or pretext when they came to take their share. Therefore, seizing other spirit lands by force was not considered by Lu Chongqing. He couldn't bring himself to seize other spirit lands without reason. Of course, if any thoughtless family offended him and forced his hand, he wouldn't mind doing so. The second way to obtain a spirit land was to clear and develop it oneself. Although spirit veins were scarce in the cultivation world, it was still possible to find some unclaimed ones. However, most such spirit veins were located in places with poor terrain or harsh environments. Or they were surrounded by numerous and very dangerous demon beasts. So if one was willing to spend time and effort, it was still possible to find a spirit vein and cultivate it into a spirit land. But this option, too, was not considered by Lu Chongqing. First of all, he had a general idea about the future development of his family. With his puppets, talisman making, spirit slaughterer, and skills obtained from future draws, he intended to train his children in artisanal trades. By mastering these skills, his family would have a stable source of income. Therefore, he had certain requirements for the geographical environment. If the environment was too remote or too poor, and there were too few cultivators and marketplaces around, it would definitely be inconvenient for doing business. Secondly, to find a suitable spirit vein and to develop it into a spirit land would also require a great deal of time and effort. It could take many years or even decades. So this path was completely out of Lu Changsheng's consideration. The third way was to purchase or rent a spirit land with money. Some cultivation families, facing decline or a break in lineage, would choose to sell or almost give away their family spirit lands. However, such spirit lands were usually not of high quality. If Lu Changsheng were willing, he could easily take over a first-grade spirit vein. But to cultivate a first-grade spirit vein into a second-grade would consume too much time and resources, so it was not considered by Lu Changsheng. Immortal sects like Heavenly Sword Sect, Qingyun Sect, Wuxia Sect, and Spirit Taming Sect all had several second-grade spiritual vein dojos with excellent environment and geographical location. These spirit lands, besides being used to establish cultivation marketplaces, also had some available for rent or sale. If I could purchase a spirit land within the jurisdiction of Qingyun Sect, that would be a fine choice. However, most of these spiritual vein dojos are only rented out, seldom sold. Even when they are up for sale, not everyone is qualified to buy them. Moreover, the price of a spiritual vein dojo is astronomically high, beyond what I can currently afford. Lu Changsheng shook his head slightly, not dwelling on this matter. With his current worth, it wasn't easy to establish a family clan from nothing. After all, a family clan is something that accumulates over generations. If he wanted to complete in a short time what others have achieved over several generations, it would naturally cost him exponentially more. However, he wasn't in a hurry to establish a family clan. He planned to wait until his children were older. The most urgent task at hand is to accumulate a foundation. In a few years, when I can reasonably reveal my strength at foundation establishment, I'll consider the matter of establishing a family clan. By that time, my 100 or so children should have grown up and will be able to share the burdens of this old father. Otherwise, even with a family spirit land and the establishment of my own family, I would be faced with a lack of manpower and would need to do everything personally. Lu Changsheng was very clear in his heart. To establish a family clan, a spirit land was only the basic condition. With the spirit land secured, one would at least need a family great formation, right? Such large-scale formations couldn't be managed with just a set of formation tools. Chapter 317. Family Spirit Land. Repair the Tao Foundation. An array master is necessary for the setup. As for the great formation of his own family, Lu Changsheng truly did not feel assured to let others handle its arrangement. Moreover, such large-scale formations, even ordinary second-rank formations, are exceedingly expensive. With the formation's protection, it's necessary to sort the earth veins, develop the spirit fields, and the medicinal fields. Then planting the spiritual medicines in the spirit fields, the envisioned puppet factory, nurturing spiritual beasts, all require substantial financial investment and people to do the work. It's feasible to recruit outsiders, servants, to work. But core matters must be kept in the hands of our own people. At present, aside from his wives and concubines, his eldest son, Lu Pingon, is only 13 years old. And since Lu Pingon does not have a spiritual root, he cannot do many things, which must be done only by offspring with spiritual roots. Lu Changsheng was very clear about all this in his heart. He knew that establishing a family from nothing, regardless of the cost, or human and mental effort, would be tremendous and require extensive preparation. Even with a system at his disposal, it wouldn't be easy for one person to traverse in a few years or over a decade what others take over 100 years to accomplish. However, had it not been for the blessings of many children granted by the system, Lu Changsheng would not have even thought about establishing a family. After all, creating a family is like planting trees for future generations to enjoy the shade. In the early stages, it's all toil with little return. Moreover, most often, the founders don't live to see the benefits and conveniences of the family. However, for me, it's just about getting through the initial stage, he said to himself. After all, as long as the children are well, this father will be content. Once the family gets on the right track and carries on from generation to generation, this old father, this ancestor, can also relax and live leisurely. Lu Chongqing was also aware that he differed from other family founders. Most of them turned to building a family only when they saw no hope in cultivation, whereas his focus was on stability and a promising future where every effort would be rewarded. At this moment, Lu Chongqing turned to look at Xiaofan, whose eyelashes trembled slightly as her eyes slowly opened. He immediately asked with concern, "Xiyu, you're awake." Chongqing. Xiaofan had a breakthrough in her foundation establishment, completing a metamorphosis. Her skin, previously as pure as ice and snow, now seemed to flow with faint moonlight, making her entire person appear even more coldly sacred and pure. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique, First Level, Yun Wuqing, Yuer Wuqing. Looking at Lu Chongqing in front of her, Xiaofan had complicated feelings. Initially, she thought that Yun stood for men and Yu for women. Clouds and moons sit millions of miles apart, unrelated to each other, so clouds are heartless, and so is the moon. But her master, Yun Wanshang, told her that clouds carry the light of the moon and cast the reflection of colorful clouds on the earth. To those on earth, it seemed as if the moon rested in the clouds, with the clouds embracing the moon, coexisting in interdependence. Thus, supreme forgetful love means one must experience emotion to reach heartlessness. However, with her breakthrough in the supreme forgetful love technique, she gained new insight. Clouds and moon intertwined, with the clouds surrounding the moon and the moon illuminating the clouds, both distant and close. One cold and quiet, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless by nature. Hence cloud heartless, moon heartless. It turns out I was wrong from the beginning, and so was Master, Xiaofan murmured to herself. From the start of their cultivation, both she and Lu Chongqing had no emotions. That is, they had desire but no feelings, aligning with the state of cloud heartless, moon heartless. But as her cultivation progressed, she became increasingly entangled, possessed by both desire and emotions. Although it was a mistake, she also knew that supreme forgetful love, in the end, is all about being heartless without emotions, cutting away those threads of sentiment. So, when together with Lu Chongqing, they had both desire and emotion. When alone, she would cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to achieve a state of no desire, no emotions. Yet during the impact of foundation establishment, she was ultimately unable to sever her emotions completely and achieve heartlessness. But because Lu Chongqing was by her side, she had both desire and emotions when it mattered, and in the end, she succeeded in her foundation establishment, though her Tao foundation was damaged. So what does the second level mean with its cloud has sentiment, and moon has sentiment? Xiaofan thought about the state of mind necessary for the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. This related to whether she could reach core formation. Although her Tao foundation was damaged, with cracks making core formation seem distant, she was not going to give up on herself. "Xiyu, how are you feeling? Are you all right?" Lu Chongqing looked at Xiaofan, who had just opened her eyes, then stared blankly at him, and he inquired. "I'm fine," Xiaofan replied, shaking her head lightly. She could feel that whenever she faced Lu Chongqing, her state of mind couldn't truly achieve calmness, supreme forgetful love. Then, with a wave of her hand, she clothed herself in moon-white lingerie, undergarments, and a skirt. Despite their intimacy. But the thought of her own breakthrough process, having been undressed the entire time, made Xiaofan somewhat shy. "Xiyu, now that you're fine, let's see if I can repair your Tao foundation," Lu Chongqing said, looking at Xiaofan, who had donned her skirt, her long hair casually falling down to her waist, the contrast of black and white naturally bearing a celestial essence without any pretense. "Repair Tao foundation?" Xiaofan looked towards Lu Chongqing, still somewhat incredulous. After all, such a notion was astounding. "Yes, the Tao foundation I gathered during foundation establishment is called the Yin-Yang 5 Elements Foundation Base, and this Yin-Yang Qi." Lu Chongqing did not conceal anything and revealed the effect of his Tao foundation to Xiaofan. Upon hearing this, Xiaofan's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise, seemingly astonished that such a foundation base existed. At the same time, her creamy cheeks instantly flushed a shade of red. She had read many books about foundation establishment. She knew about many perfect foundations, but she had never heard of such a foundation as Lu Chongqing's. Putting aside the fact that the effects of this foundation were too extraordinary, the method of repairing the foundation, which required dual cultivation, made her feel as if Lu Chongqing was pulling a fast one on her. "Yu, don't you trust me?" Looking at Xiaoxia's silence, her cold eyes displaying a touch of disbelief, Lu Chongqing immediately spoke up. Chapter 318. Family Spiritland, Repair the Tao Foundation. "I naturally trust you," Xiaoxia said softly, her luscious lips gently pressing together. Though she said so, her heart still harbored doubts about such effects on the Tao Foundation. However, thinking that she would soon return to Qingyun's sect, she sighed softly and complied with Lu Changsheng's request. Lu Chongsheng could tell that Xiaoxia still had some disbelief. He immediately wanted to prove through his actions that he, Lu Chongsheng, was a man of integrity. He would not fabricate such a lie just out of lust. Soon, a rustling sound emerged, accompanied by a soft, cold whimper. The symphony of a grand life harmony began to play. Who knows how much time had passed? Huff! As the yin-yang energies entered Xiaoxia's body, Lu Chongqing let out a long breath. He embraced the sweat-drenched Xiaoxia and extended his divine sense into her body, to see how the yin-yang energies were repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation. After all, he knew of it, but this was his first attempt. Moreover, Xiaoxia's situation was somewhat unique. He saw the yin-yang energies transform into a yin-yang fish, entering Xiaoxia's qi ocean core. They swirled around her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation. During the process, a faint yin-yang qi diffused over the cracks of the Tao platform. "Yu, how is it? Do you feel any effect?" Lu Chongqing asked after observing for a while. He could tell that the yin-yang energies should be repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation, but there were no apparent changes to the cracks on the platform. He could not discern whether the Tao platform was benefiting from the yin-yang energies' purification. Xiaoxia propped up her soft, powerless body with some effort, her porcelain skin flushed with a hint of pink. With her hand gently caressing her slightly swollen lower abdomen, she closed her eyes to sense the changes in her Tao platform. In this moment, she could clearly feel that under the nourishment of these yin-yang energies, her Tao platform was indeed being repaired. What astonished her even more was that these yin-yang energies resonated with her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation, giving her the faint sense that, with enough yin-yang energies, not only would her Tao Foundation be repaired but it might also undergo some kind of transformation. Chongqing. The effect of these yin-yang energies made Xiaoxia's heart flutter. Her stunning face lifted to look at Lu Chongqing, at a loss for words for a moment. With a gap in her Tao heart, her Tao Foundation was damaged, leaving her inner world not at peace. Now, seeing that her Tao Foundation could indeed be repaired and perhaps even further improved, her heart was tumultuous with emotion. "Yu, how is it? I didn't deceive you, did I?" Seeing Xiaoxia's reaction, Lu Chongqing immediately knew the yin-yang energies were effective. He snorted lightly, slightly annoyed, and pinched her delicate skin playfully. He could see that Xiaoxia hadn't really believed he could repair the Tao Foundation before. "Lu Lang, Yu was wrong," Xiaoxia voiced sweetly, her eyes brimming with moisture as she nestled against Lu Changsheng's chest. She was a little less aloof and a little more fragile. Normally, her use of the Supreme Forgetful Love technique allowed her to maintain a tranquil mind, undisturbed by emotions. But their recent dual cultivation had nearly nullified the Supreme Forgetful Love technique. And she didn't operate the technique to suppress her emotions. She even prevented the Supreme Forgetful Love technique from activating automatically. It was as if she had a subtle revelation about the second layer of the Supreme Forgetful Love technique. Clouds have affections, the moon holds affection. The moon, accompanied by the clouds, shone even more brightly. The clouds, illuminated by the moon, appeared even more vibrant and graceful. If she stood on the ground and looked up, admiring how the two complemented each other, it would result in the creation of a beautiful scenery, just like a painting of the clear blue sky. "It's good that you understand your mistake. How do you think this effect is? Approximately how many times will it take to repair the cracks in your Tao Foundation?" Lu Chongqing, using his divine sense to observe, could tell that this kind of thing wasn't going to be fixed in 1 or 2 tries. It's going to take several sessions. Possibly dozens of times. Xiaoxia's cheeks were slightly flushed as she gave an estimate. Thinking of this number meant accepting the number of times she'd have to engage in dual cultivation with Lu Chongqing, which made her hang her head in shyness. She had actually been planning to return to the Qingyun sect. But how could she return if she had to repair her Tao Foundation? Dozens of times. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's eyebrows raised slightly. The yin-yang energies he possessed were not simply mana, but the essence of the human body. After each use, they had to be slowly replenished through cultivation. The yin-yang energies he had just expended would likely take about 10 days to a half-month to recuperate. If it was going to take 50 times for Xiaoxia's foundation to be restored, it meant that it would take about 1 to 2 years. For cultivators, 1 to 2 years to repair a crack in the foundation is naturally not considered a long time. Chongqing, your yin-yang energies not only repair the Dao foundation but also resonate with mine. Xiaoxia continued to speak. She discussed the effects of the yin-yang energies on her foundation. There's such an effect? Lu Chongqing was also somewhat surprised. He really didn't know that his yin-yang energies had such an effect. If his yin-yang energies could further improve a perfect foundation, that would be too heaven-defying. Wait a minute. Could this effect be because, at the time my 7 Lamps foundation advanced to the yin-yang 5 Elements foundation, it merged with Shiyu's Great Yin Moon Essence? After all, this Great Yin Moon Essence and Shiyu share the same origin, so maybe that's why my yin-yang energies have an extra effect on Shiyu's foundation. Lu Chongqing speculated in his mind. He felt that if it could also upgrade a perfect foundation, it would be too heaven-defying. He then shared his speculation with Xiaoxia. Xiaoxia was also somewhat astonished after hearing this. She hadn't expected that Lu Changsheng's yin-yang energies were formed by her own Great Yin Moon Essence and the Great Sun Essence. However, she was also unclear about this situation. After all, her understanding of foundations was limited. Shiyu, approximately how many times before your foundation can undergo a transformation? Lu Chongqing asked again. I don't know either. Xiaoxia shook her head gently. She could only feel the resonance of the yin-yang energies in the process of repairing her foundation. It made her feel that under the nourishment of the yin-yang energies, her foundation would undergo a certain change. No worries, with persistent effort even an iron rod can be ground to a needle. Shiyu, rest assured, I will definitely repair your foundation and help you take it a step further. Lu Chongqing spoke with deep affection, his tone growing firmer and more sincere. Xiaoxia, with Lu Changsheng's gesture, lifted her chin slightly, her cheeks blushing, and softly hummed in approval. By the way, Shiyu, I have a cultivation technique that's not only beneficial for cultivation but might also be useful for repairing the foundation. Lu Chongqing thought of his tender embrace technique and mentioned it to Xiaoxia. He also wanted to try out another effect of his foundation. Chapter 319, If you feel bad about it, have a few children under 1. Several days later, the sky cleared up, and the rain ceased. Poof! Lu Chongqing flipped over and rose to his feet. He took out 3 elixir medicines and swallowed them. Holding 2 spirit stones in his hand, he sat cross-legged in cultivation, absorbing and devouring copious amounts of pure spiritual energy. In the next moment, within the sea of qi in his dantian, a drop of liquid mana formed, resembling 7-colored glazed glass. It merged into the multicolored Dan Lake, making the Dan Lake ripple gently, growing slightly in size. Phew, this effect is simply astonishing. But it seems the dual cultivation with Shiyu also has an enhancing effect. Lu Chongqing was somewhat astonished and amazed just to have condensed a drop of liquid mana by himself. From qi refinement to the breakthrough of foundation establishment, he had condensed a total of 100 drops of liquid mana within his Dan Lake. Once the total amount of liquid mana reached 150 drops, he could attempt the second level of foundation establishment. Lu Chongqing had not expected that just a few days of dual cultivation with Xiaoxia would directly condense a drop of liquid mana. This speed was truly astonishing. Based on my current speed of cultivation, it takes roughly 2 months to condense a single drop of liquid mana. So these days of dual cultivation are about the same as 2 months of arduous cultivation for me. Lu Chongqing calculated in his heart. Previously, his days of dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge amounted to at most half a month's worth of arduous cultivation. But with Xiaoxia, it was comparable to 2 full months of arduous cultivation. This led Lu Chongqing to speculate that it wasn't just the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base that enhanced dual cultivation. It was also the added benefit from dual cultivating with Xiaoxia. However, he wasn't greedy. The mana cultivated in this manner ultimately wasn't as consolidated as that which he cultivated steadily and methodically. It required time to stabilize. Otherwise, it would result in a weak foundation. so it was something to indulge in occasionally, a fun activity between husband and wife cultivators. But now that I'm at Foundation Establishment, I can condense the 7 luminaries heart lamp, which not only purges elixir toxicity and guards my mental spirit, but also has the effect of burning nature's spiritual energy, speeding up cultivation, solidifying mana, and strengthening my foundation. So occasionally indulging a little shouldn't be a problem. Lu Chongqing also thought about the 7 luminaries heart lamp he had been yearning for. This heart lamp not only aided in cultivation but also possessed combat capabilities. It could enhance his combat power at the Foundation Establishment stage. Sigh. At that moment, Xiaofan also opened her eyes from her meditation, and her clear beautiful eyes overflowed with tender affection as they looked towards Lu Chongqing. The tender embrace technique was certainly not an energy drain technique. It was a superior dual cultivation technique. Not only beneficial for Lu Chongqing but also for Xiaofan. Especially the past several days of dual cultivation, which allowed Xiaofan to gain a deeper understanding of the second level of Supreme Forgetful Love technique. Clouds have emotions, moon has emotions. Xiyu, have I broken your Supreme Forgetful Love technique again? Lu Chongqing looked at Xiaofan, whose face was full of gentle love, took her into his arms, and teasingly said. He also knew that Xiaofan's Supreme Forgetful Love technique would make the practitioner emotionless and indifferent as they cultivated further into it. Even though he didn't want her to end up like that, seeing that Xiaofan regained her bright and soft demeanor after breaking through Foundation Establishment, he couldn't help feeling worried. Worried that, besides her Dao Foundation, some other problems arose in her cultivation. Yes, in front of Lu Lang, how can Xiyu adhere to supreme forgetfulness? Xiaofan spoke faintly. Yet a hint of deep affection shimmered in her eyes. It was exactly this thread of affection that had compromised her Dao Foundation. And after completing Foundation Establishment, as the two of them continued to dual cultivate, this thread of affection began to spread anew within her heart. She did not suppress these feelings, allowing them to spread and ferment. Lu Chongqing noticed Xiaofan's demeanor and knew that she should be all right. Immediately, he pinched her cheek and chuckled. In that case, does Xiyu have to cultivate by my side for a lifetime? Yes, if Xiyu can never break through supreme forgetfulness, then he'll have to cultivate by Lu Lang's side for a lifetime, Xiaofan playfully responded in a seemingly light-hearted manner. But her heart skipped a beat. Understanding that if the second layer of Supreme Forgetful Love technique, clouds have emotions, moon has emotions, is as she surmised, then breaking through this layer and advancing further would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although she harbored feelings for Lu Chongqing, she also couldn't let go of her aspiration towards the Tao. Since Xiyu feels this way, then it's fine not to cultivate that supreme forgetfulness. Lu Chongqing stated. Although the Supreme Forgetful Love technique is powerful, he saw its side effects as too significant. Hearing this, Xiaofan's eyes lowered, and her lips quivered as she bit her lip. For a moment, she fell silent. The Supreme Forgetful Love technique was not like other cultivation techniques that could be readily changed. Especially now that she had broken through to Foundation Establishment, to switch her practice would mean starting all over from scratch. And she was unwilling to give up this Supreme Forgetful Love technique. Because it was only through cultivating this technique that she might be able to travel farther on the path of immortality, and see a broader world. I was just saying it casually, Xiyu, don't take it to heart. Besides, I believe that there are always ways to have the best of both worlds, Lu Chongqing said, seeing Xiaofan in such a state, and spoke gently. He knew techniques like the Supreme Forgetful Love technique represented the foundation of the Tao for Xiaofan, and his words had clearly put Xiaofan in a difficult position of choosing between her emotions and cultivation. This understanding made him empathetic, and he did not wish to pressure her, believing that in the future, he would find a way that could accommodate both. Chongqing. I'm sorry, Xiaofan said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Not only did she love Lu Chongqing, but she also felt a profound sense of guilt towards him. The more understanding and accommodating Lu Chongqing was, the guiltier she felt. Because she was acutely aware that her affection for Lu Chongqing was not pure, and now it also encompassed the intention to use his cultivation for her own benefit. In such circumstances, Lu Chongqing continued to support her, providing Foundation Establishment elixirs and helping repair and refine her Tao Foundation without seeking anything in return. Her guilt weighed heavily on her. Chapter 320. If you feel bad about it, have a few children, there's no need for apologies between us. If you truly feel uneasy in your heart, Xiyu, and one day you manage to break through the supreme level of detachment and have to leave, then have a few children for me. As a remembrance of our relationship, let me look upon the children and be reminded of you. Lu Chongqing said this half-jokingly. Have children. When Xiaofan heard these words, her heart trembled slightly, she became briefly lost in thought, and her face revealed a blush of shyness. Having spent so much time with Lu Chongqing, she naturally knew how fond he was of children. But she had never considered the matter of having children. Or rather, most cultivators, unless they see no hope in their path of cultivation, even if they have partners, do not think about having children. Especially someone like Xiaofan, who was at the prime age for vigorous advancement in cultivation, with a bright future ahead, would think even less about having children. Now that Lu Chongqing had brought it up, Xiaofan couldn't help but genuinely ponder the idea. She thought about having a child for Lu Chongqing. That way, when she left, someone would still be there to keep him company. But the thought of childbirth scared her inexplicably. She remembered hearing as a child that childbirth was like passing through the gates of hell. She also thought about how, if she had a child and she wasn't around, the child would be motherless and might be bullied by others. For a moment, Xiaoxia's heart raced and her thoughts were in turmoil. Xiyu, what are you thinking about? You're not considering what we're going to name our kids in the future, are you? Seeing Xiaoxia's blush and her thoughtful, conflicted expression, Lu Chongqing laughed softly. Although he suggested that Xiaoxia have children, it was mostly a preventive measure, tilting more towards a joke. After all, she does have a core formation master. He dared not truly plan to cajole someone else's disciple into having children. Humph, who said I would have children for you? Xiaoxia looked at Lu Chongqing's teasing, half-smiling expression, spat lightly, and showed a bit of girlish moodiness. She pounded her little fist on Lu Chongqing's chest, saying one thing while meaning another. Watching the fairy behave in such a manner, Lu Chongqing shouted "Ayo" in amusement. Then the two of them were affectionate for a while. Xiyu, I plan to buy some items in the Qingyun market and then return to Qingzhou Mountain. Are you going back to the Red Leaf Valley market with me, or? Lu Chongqing asked. Cultivating together with Xiaoxia in the Qingyun market, life was undoubtedly pleasant. But after all, he had a family. At home, there were a bunch of wives and children. This trip had already lasted over 5 months. Having not returned for such a long time, and now that his foundation establishment was complete, he naturally had to go back. So, he thought of purchasing materials for crafting the 7 luminaries heart lamp in the Qingyun market before heading back to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley market. Chongqing, I've been away for quite a long time on this trip, and now that I've succeeded in foundation establishment, I should also make a trip back. I will come to find you afterward, Xiyu. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia said softly. Having been on her cultivation journey for a while and now that she had succeeded in foundation establishment, she needed to go back to report and inform her master. All right, when you do, just come directly to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley Market and contact me. Lu Chongqing nodded in agreement. The two of them did not linger. They packed up their things, cleaned out the cave dwelling, and prepared to leave. As he left the cave, Lu Chongqing put on his mask artifact once again, reverting to the disguised appearance he had before. This mask was no longer the lower-grade magical instrument he had initially bought, the 100 Changes mask. It was a higher-grade magical instrument with a similar effect. Once disguised, unless faced with a foundation establishment cultivator using a special technique or divine skills for seeing through illusions, it was usually impenetrable. Xiaoxia, however, did not disguise herself. When she rented the cave dwelling with a token, she had already revealed her identity. And her situation was different from Lu Chongqing's. She had no such concerns. The two of them opened the cave dwelling and were ready to go downhill to the rental office to return it. At a distance, a young man noticed that Xiaoxia's cave dwelling opened with a boom. He immediately got up, his face full of joy as he came forward to congratulate her. But when he saw Xiaoxia walking out of the cave closely with an ordinary-looking young man, his body suddenly stiffened, and his previously smiling face turned extremely unsightly. Meng brother. At this moment, Xiaoxia also saw the young man and was somewhat surprised. I heard that Xiyu was here attempting foundation establishment, so I came to congratulate you. Meng Bai, with his face looking a bit gloomy and unpleased, said. After speaking, he transformed into a streak of escape light and left, entering a nearby meaning second character cave dwelling. He knew Xiaofan was renting a cave dwelling to attempt foundation establishment and thus stayed outside waiting after he noticed the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy. He had hoped to immediately congratulate her upon her exit to win the affection of a beautiful person. For this, he even prepared a special gift. But he never expected that Xiaofan would walk out with a man, and that the two of them would show such intimate behavior, looking very much like a couple. He had guessed from the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy that there might be two people in the cave trying for foundation establishment. But he had not considered the possibility of the other being a man. After all, Xiaofan was known in the Qingyun sect as Fairy Xiyu, famous for her aloofness and pride. She rarely interacted with people, let alone men. And yet, the usually cold and dignified Fairy Xiyu was now showing a gentle smile and affectionate behavior towards a man. Thinking about the two of them attempting foundation establishment together and staying in the dwelling for months, Meng Yibai felt sick to his stomach. Slut! The more Meng Yibai thought about it, the angrier he became, punching the cave's wall in frustration and grinding his teeth in resentment. I thought she was so cold and aloof, but now it seems she's nothing special. Who is this person, and why don't I remember such a person in our sect? Meng Yibai, thinking of Lu Changsheng's appearance, had eyes filled with intense murderous intent. Chapter 321. If you feel bad about it, have a few children already proud and arrogant. He couldn't swallow the affront he encountered at that moment. As for Xiaofan, he didn't dare to offend her, so he immediately shifted all the blame onto Lu Changsheng. This person's name is Meng Yibai, the grandson of a false core immortal from our sect. It seems he came over upon hearing about my foundation establishment in the marketplace, to offer his congratulations. Xiaofan watched Meng Yibai leave with an unsightly expression, and to prevent Lu Changsheng from misunderstanding, she explained softly. This person must have some pursuit towards Xiyu. Otherwise, his face wouldn't look so troubled. Lu Changsheng chuckled and said. He thought it was fortunate that he had disguised himself. Otherwise, he might have incurred someone's resentment just because of this. After all, the trouble brought by beauty is something no one can be certain of. Xiaofan nodded slightly in agreement. Although she practiced the great art of forgetting emotions, which made her emotions detached, she was not ignorant of human relationships and worldly affairs. Naturally, she also knew the other party had such intentions. If the disciples of the Qingyun sect found out that Fairy Xiyu was pursued and won over by me, wouldn't I be chased to the ends of the earth? Lu Changsheng joked. He was not jealous because of this. If Xiaofan had no suitors in the Qingyun sect, he wouldn't believe it himself. Just like in the Nine Dragons market, Lu Miaoge had many suitors. But in the end, it was he, Lu, who had more charm and won the Bowtie's favor. It's not that exaggerated. Upon hearing his words, the corners of Xiaofan's mouth lifted upwards. A hint of joy bubbled up in her heart. Immediately afterward, the two arrived at their cave dwelling rental. When the caretaker Han saw Xiaofan and Lu Changsheng come, judging by their appearances and auras, he knew that they had both succeeded in their foundation establishment. One sign was the anomaly of the nature's spiritual energy vortex earlier, which indicated successful foundation establishment. The other sign was that, if foundation establishment failed, even with foundation establishment elixirs, one's energy would be weak and disordered in the short term. But Xiaofan and Lu Changsheng had mana that showed no signs of weakness or disorder, deep and profound like an ocean, which made him feel it was unfathomable. Congratulations to Xiao Shishu on successful foundation establishment, and to this senior on successful foundation establishment. May your path to the great Tao be promising. Caretaker Han immediately bowed deeply. Now that Xiaofan had achieved foundation establishment, her status had naturally risen. Before, he was able to call her junior sister, due to joining the sect earlier and being older. Now he naturally had to address her as Shishu, and refer to Lu Changsheng as senior. Xiao Shishu, when you were undertaking foundation establishment, Immortal Du and Meng Yibai, Meng Shishu, came here and asked about you. Immortal Du, upon knowing you were attempting foundation establishment, instructed that no one should disturb you, Caretaker Han continued, taking the opportunity to remind her. Though this matter wasn't something big, he felt it was still necessary to inform Xiaofan. After all, she was not only a disciple of a nascent soul immortal but had also achieved foundation establishment. If she could leave a good impression, it might be beneficial for her future. Upon hearing this, Xiaofan nodded slightly. She had already seen Meng Yibai just now. As for Immortal Du, she knew he was a false core immortal presiding over the Qingyun market. The fact that he ordered not to disturb her was clearly a show of goodwill. "Thank you, Brother Han." Xiaofan bowed slightly in response. She naturally knew that in the Qingyun sect, one's status greatly increased upon breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. A Qi refinement disciple must address a foundation establishment disciple as Shu. However, she was not accustomed to such a title yet, especially since caretaker Han was 20 to 30 years her senior. This fairy Shi Yu and this person seemed to have an extraordinary relationship. Not only did they establish their foundations together, but they also stayed in the cave dwelling for so long. After Xiaofan and Lu Chongqing left, caretaker Han was inwardly shocked. He had felt before that the relationship between Lu Chongqing and Xiaofan was not ordinary. This was why he mentioned not only Immortal Du but also Meng Yibai. After all, young Master Meng was not one with a good temper. If he saw the close relationship between Lu Chongqing and Xiaofan, he might cause trouble. But what does it have to do with me? Caretaker Han shook his head, deciding not to think further. Having managed affairs for so many years, he knew that there were things one shouldn't be curious about if it wasn't necessary. "Chongqing, that Immortal Du is an elder of our sect. Since I've come to the market to break through foundation establishment, it's only right for me to pay a visit in both sentiment and etiquette," Xiaofan said to Lu Chongqing. If she hadn't known about it, it wouldn't matter. But now that she was aware of Immortal Du, and he knew of her visit, it would be inappropriate not to pay a visit. "All right, you go ahead. I happen to need to buy some things as well." Lu Chongqing smiled and nodded, indicating that after he finished his shopping, he would head straight back to Qingzhou Mountain. Xiaofan returned to her usual cool demeanor, showing a hint of tenderness. She then hugged Lu Chongqing somewhat reluctantly. Meng Yibai, just down from Core Peak, saw this scene. His already unpleasant expression turned as dark as liver. His fists clenched tight, with murderous intent in his eyes. Before, he had comforted himself, thinking that the two were just friends and therefore somewhat affectionate. But seeing Xiaofan take the initiative to embrace Lu Chongqing now, to say there was nothing between them would be something not even he could believe. He walked towards the cave dwelling rentals with an expressionless face. "It seems I need to be careful with this person." Lu Chongqing also noticed the expressionless Meng Yibai and thought to himself. As a man, he naturally understood men. He could see that someone like Meng Yibai, who radiated vigorous and sharp energy, must have an extremely proud personality. Seeing the object of his pursuit intimate with another might lead him to malice simply out of displeasure. Shortly after, they parted ways, and Lu Chongqing headed toward the inner city. He planned to deal with some possessions and buy some materials. Chapter 322. The Army of Golden Armor Warriors. The way to enter Qingyun sect. After arriving in the inner city, Lu Chongqing didn't go directly to purchase or deal with his belongings. Instead, he found a large inn, checked into a room, and changed into a different disguise. After all, having spent so long in Nine Dragons Market, he had experience with this and wanted to avoid attracting attention. At this time, Lu Chongqing also remembered the golden armor bean mother in his system space. Since he had been with Xiaofan, he hadn't taken it out. Extract. Lu Chongqing opened the system space. His mental spirit flickered slightly. Immediately, a golden bean the size of an egg appeared in front of him. At the same time, detailed information about the golden armor bean mother emerged in Lu Chongqing's mind. The golden armor bean mother could transform into a second-rank golden armor warrior or be used for planting and breeding spirit beans. The information about this golden armor warrior was close to what he had speculated before. It was somewhat similar to a puppet and a demon beast. Or rather, it was something in between a puppet and a demon beast. It had slightly more autonomy than a puppet. It didn't require divine sense to control and could follow simple commands. But compared to demon beasts, it had less autonomy. It could only do as commanded and lacked the ability to adapt spontaneously. But this golden armor warrior didn't consume spirit stones like a puppet, nor did it require food and drink like a demon beast. It could absorb and store spiritual energy on its own, and when completely depleted, could recover slowly if placed in spiritual earth. This golden armor being mother's transformed golden armor warrior has the strength of the late second rank. Even if its autonomy is low and it doesn't have many techniques or divine skills, it's still comparable to a top-level second-rank puppet. It shouldn't be a problem facing medium-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Lu Chongqing had an approximate understanding of the golden armor being mother's combat capability. The combat capability was quite straightforward, geared towards close combat and acting as a meat shield. Similar to a puppet, ordinary foundation establishment cultivators would struggle to withstand its full-force attacks. However, as I suspected, the primary function of this golden armor being mother lies in its ability to be planted and cultivated. A faint smile appeared on Lu Changsheng's face, understanding the planting and breeding aspect of the golden armor being mother. It takes 3 years to sprout, 3 years to grow leaves, 3 years to blossom, and 3 years to bear pods. In other words, it can complete a reproduction cycle and bear fruit every 12 years. Each time, it can yield 5 to 10 golden armor spirit beans. All these golden armor spirit beans can transform into golden armor warriors, although they are not as powerful as the golden armor being mother. They only possess the strength of the late first rank, roughly equivalent to a high-grade first-rank puppet. A 12-year cycle is a bit long. Moreover, these golden armor spirit beans can't be planted and bred like the golden armor being mother. Otherwise, if I could continuously breed more from the beans, I could establish an entire army of golden armor warriors. Lu Chongqing felt a tinge of regret in his heart. When he first obtained second-rank puppet techniques, he envisioned creating an army of puppets to execute the puppet C technique. However, due to the high cost of creating puppets and the need for personal control, he had to abandon the idea. But these golden armor spirit beans could be planted, and he could have them do tasks with just simple commands, rekindling his interest in this approach. Alas, these golden armor spirit beans also had their flaws. Unless necessary, I should avoid using the golden armor bean mother for combat. Otherwise, if it gets damaged or develops problems and can't blossom and bear fruit, that would be a major loss. After all, the golden armor warriors produced from these golden armor spirit beans are extremely convenient for combat, tilling spiritual earth, forging puppet parts, or any simple miscellaneous tasks. They require no human manipulation, no food or drink, no rest, and as long as they have enough spiritual power, they can work endlessly. When their spiritual power is exhausted or they suffer from wear and tear, provided it is not too severe, they can recover if buried in spiritual earth. Lu Chongqing muttered to himself, realizing that for him, the golden armor being mother was not to be used for transforming into a golden armor warrior for combat, but rather, to continually reproduce a labor force. In the future, when he established his own family, many tasks, such as the envisioned puppet factory, could be entrusted to the golden armor warriors produced by the spirit beans. I wonder if I will be able to draw something like the golden armor being mother again. Lu Chongqing became even more interested in such Dao soldiers, and decided to check the bookstores in Qingyun Market later for information about Dao soldiers. After putting the golden armor being mother into his spiritual pet bag, Lu Chongqing left the inn. He first visited 2 magic artifact shops and traded the artifacts he didn't need for spirit stones. In total, there were 4 supreme artifacts and 3 upper-grade artifacts. The quality of these artifacts was still quite good, and since they weren't used much, he sold them for 6,300 spirit stones. As for the 3 spiritual artifacts he acquired from the young man in the red robe, Lu Chongqing chose not to sell them. Now that he had reached foundation establishment, it was only natural that he updated his artifacts. The other party's colorless flying sword was quite good, being a middle-grade spiritual artifact, so he kept it for his own use. Although the blood-colored scissors were somewhat worn, they were still usable. As for the red phoenix pearl, since it was the other party's life-bound spiritual artifact, its power would be significantly reduced if he used it. But considering it was a life-bound spiritual artifact and rather conspicuous, potentially recognized by acquaintances, Lu Chongqing also chose not to sell it, planning to decide what to do with it later. Afterward, Lu Chongqing inquired about the location of the Qingyun Commerce Guild. He changed his appearance again and headed towards the Qingyun Commerce Guild. For constructing the 7 luminaries heart lamp, He already had several of the common materials, but the rest were rarer spiritual materials, which were hard to find in ordinary shops. They could only be purchased from big commerce guilds and large shops. In addition to buying materials for the 7 luminaries heart lamp, Lu Chongqing also intended to purchase a second-rank talisman brush and materials for drawing second-tier top-level supreme talismans. Chapter 323. The Army of Golden Armor Warriors. The way to enter Qing Yun's sect at the peak of Qi refinement. He could only draw second-rank lower-quality talismans and barely manage middle-quality ones. Now that he had broken through the foundation establishment, he was almost capable of drawing supreme second-rank talismans. Naturally, he needed to draw some talismans for self-protection. Welcome to Qing Yun Commerce Guild. May I know if the guest is here to buy or sell? As soon as Lu Chongqing stepped into the Qing Yun Commerce Guild, a beautiful female cultivator dressed in the standard Cheongsam uniform of the guild approached to serve him. Both buying and selling. Lu Chongqing casually replied. After being invited to sit down and having tea promptly served, Lu Chongqing took out a storage bag and placed it on the table, saying, "I want to sell these materials, please give me an estimate." "Please wait a moment, fellow Taoist." The female cultivator smiled politely and began to count and evaluate the materials in front of him. It wasn't easy to become a receptionist at Qing Yun Commerce Guild. One not only needed to be a cultivator but also had to be adept at appraising materials. After a while, the female cultivator respectfully said, "Senior, I have counted the materials you wish to sell, and our purchase price is 3,391 spirit stones. May I know your opinion? If you need, I can list the purchase price of each item for you." The female cultivator crouched to the side, causing her figure-hugging Cheongsam to tighten and outline her exquisite curves, very tempting to the eye. "No need, that price will do." Lu Chongqing nodded his head. He had also roughly estimated the value of these materials. The value was around 5,000 spirit stones. But value was just value. It was not guaranteed that he could sell them all on his own. Buying was also quite troublesome. In places like the Qing Yun Commerce Guild, they typically bought at about 60 to 70% of the market value. "All right, then I will finalize the price for the senior." The female cultivator took out her own storage bag and began placing items into it one by one. But she didn't rush to settle the payment in spirit stones and asked instead, "Earlier, the senior mentioned needing to buy as well. May I know what you wish to purchase?" "Take a look at these materials." Lu Chongqing, without saying much, took out a list he had prepared. "Please wait a moment, senior." The female cultivator took the list and glanced at it, her eyes lighting up instantly. She realized it was a significant transaction. She quickly took out a jade scroll, looking up the inventory information for the materials on the list. "Senior, regarding the materials you require, I just checked, and currently, we have Xingchen sand, Tianlan silk, dragon blood soil, and celestial silver. However, we are currently out of 7-color copper and earth fire stone, but if the senior needs them, our Qing Yun Commerce Guild can also procure them on your behalf." The female cultivator spoke, handing a jade scroll to Lu Chongqing. The scroll displayed images of the various materials Lu Chongqing intended to buy. Below them, there was information on inventory and price, along with descriptions. Xingchen sand, 1,000 spirit stones per 2. Tianlan silk, 250 spirit stones per strand. Dragon blood soil, 530 spirit stones per portion. Celestial silver, 100 spirit stones per 2. Looking at these prices, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. The price of a low-grade spiritual artifact was between 3,000 to 4,000 spirit stones. To forge his life-bound spiritual artifact, just a portion of the materials would cost nearly 10,000 spirit stones, which made him somewhat regretful. 5-2 of Xingchen sand, 9 strands of Tianlan silk, 2 of dragon blood soil, and 1 caddy of celestial silver. Lu Chongqing sighed inwardly and spoke up. It just had to be said that the higher one's cultivation level, the greater the expenses. If it wasn't for me, Lu Chongqing, being skilled in second-rank talisman making and occasionally receiving support from kind-hearted individuals, I really wouldn't be able to afford such expenditure. Very well, if the senior has no other needs, I will go fetch your purchases. The female cultivator spoke respectfully. Show me the second-rank talisman pens you have here. Lu Chongqing continued. Second-rank talisman pen? Upon hearing this, the female cultivator expressed surprise and said, "I didn't expect the senior to be a talisman master, I've been impolite." Immediately, she flipped through a jade scroll to the page detailing second-rank talisman pens. She introduced the conditions of several talisman pens to Lu Chongqing. Second-rank lower-quality talisman pen. Approximately 3,000 spirit stones. Second-rank middle-quality talisman pen. Approximately 5,000 spirit stones. Second-rank high-quality talisman pen. Approximately 10,000 spirit stones. Supreme second-rank talisman pen. Approximately 15,000 spirit stones. Tiscasese, that's really expensive. Seeing the prices on the scroll, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but shake his head. He had previously bought a supreme first-grade talisman pen for a total of 1,400 spirit stones. This supreme second-rank talisman pen was more than 10 times more expensive. Get me a supreme, Qingyun second-rank talisman pen. Lu Chongqing browsed briefly through the descriptions of the various talisman pens, choosing the most popular model here. 9,800 spirit stones. Originally, he had considered going all out and buying a supreme second-rank talisman pen. This wouldn't only save him the trouble of changing pens later, but also make drawing supreme second-rank talismans much more stable. He didn't expect a second-rank talisman pen to be so costly. Mainly because when Xiaofan broke through to Foundation establishment, the outside spiritual energy wasn't enough, and he had to crush middle-grade spirit stones to provide her with nature's spiritual energy. It altogether consumed more than 80 of his middle-grade spirit stones. That is more than 8,000 spirit stones. So after selling his magic artifacts and materials today, leaving him with just over 9,000 spirit stones, he only had a little over 10,000 spirit stones left. Additionally, he still needed to purchase materials for drawing second-rank talismans. As you wish, senior, I will fetch it for you right now. Seeing that Lu Chongqing was not only buying a great quantity of materials but also purchasing a supreme second-rank talisman pen, the female cultivator knew she had encountered a major client and was very pleased, speaking respectfully. After all, as a receptionist, she did have a commission. Not in a hurry. Qingyun Commerce Guild should buy second-rank talismans too, right? Lu Chongqing continued. Now that he had broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, the lower-quality second-rank talismans he possessed were not very useful to him anymore. He might consider selling some, exchanging them for spirit stones. After all, it's always wise to have some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Chapter 324. The Army of Golden Armor Warriors, the way to enter Qingyun's sect. It's impossible to spend all the spirit stones. Moreover, he planned to visit several other shops to see if they had the 7-colored copper and earth firestone he needed. We certainly take that. The female cultivator nodded with a smile. Then she paused before continuing in a sweet, euphemistic tone. However, our Qingyun Commerce Guild only purchases premium talismans. If the talismans are of poor quality, we do not buy them. You can check the quality of this talisman. Lu Chongqing took out 10 second-rank lower-grade talismans. Please, senior, rest in our VIP room here. I myself do not understand talismans well, so I need to ask the manager to appraise them, said the female cultivator as she took the talismans with both hands. All right. Lu Chongqing nodded. He knew that these receptionists were just ordinary cultivators. Being able to recognize and appraise many spiritual materials was already quite commendable. Asking them to judge the quality of second-rank talismans might be asking too much. He followed the other party to the second-floor VIP room to wait. Before long, a spirited old man in his 50s with white hair appeared with a female cultivator in the VIP room. Who from the Qingyun Commerce Guild? Seeing the exquisite quality of the talismans you wish to sell, I took the liberty of coming to meet you, the old man said politely as he made a salute to Lu Chongqing. You flatter me, Taoist who, Lu Chongqing responded, also making a slight salute. In that case, it seems that your guild is willing to purchase my talismans. Of course. With such quality talismans, the guild will buy as many as you have, and is willing to purchase at 75% of the market price, said Manager Hu cheerfully. 75%. Lu Chongqing nodded and said, Then I thank you, Manager Hu. He knew that the Qingyun Commerce Guild's purchase price for talismans was generally 60%. At most they would go up to 70%. so offering 75% was already quite good. Besides the 10 talismans just now, I have another 15 here for Manager Hu to look at. Lu Chongqing took out another 15 second-rank lower-grade talismans and said. He had a total of 59 second-rank lower-grade talismans on him. But there was no rush to sell them all at once. Moreover, he felt that Manager Hu's visit was not just a simple courtesy call. Let me see. Manager Hu took the 15 talismans and carefully examined them, noting that they were all premium quality talismans. These 15 talismans, like the previous 10, would be 14,000 spirit stones at the market price. At 75%, our guild is willing to offer a purchase price of 7,900 spirit stones. I wonder what Daoist Han thinks. Manager Hu asked. No problem, thank you Manager Hu, Lu Chongqing nodded when he heard the offer. The price for these second-rank lower-grade talismans averaged around 400 spirit stones each. Although his high-quality premium talismans could fetch a higher price by an additional 10 or 20% on the market, the offered price was not unfair. Moreover, his cost per talisman was only 26 spirit stones, so a little less was still acceptable. I wonder if Daoist has any other needs? Manager Hu inquired. I need to purchase some talisman-making materials, Lu Chongqing said thoughtfully. Naturally, we have them beer, Manager Hu, guessing Lu Chongqing's answer and confirming his speculation, smiled and instructed. The receptionist named Beer took out a jade scroll, selecting and showing Lu Chongqing the second-ranked talisman-making materials. Afterward, Lu Chongqing purchased 30 portions of ordinary, advanced, and superior quality second-ranked talisman paper and spiritual ink, costing a total of 5,280 spirit stones. I presume Daoist is a second-grade talisman master. If I may be so bold, are you part of any power? If not, would you be interested in becoming a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild? We are always on the lookout for talents like you, Manager Hu invited after Lu Chongqing had finished his purchases. This was also the reason he had come in person. Having seen the second-ranked talismans earlier, he had discerned that Lu Chongqing's achievements on the talisman path were extraordinary. At the very least, he was a middle-grade second-grade talisman master. Now, seeing Lu Chongqing purchasing so many talisman crafting materials, his guess was confirmed, and he extended an invitation directly. Oh, may I know what responsibilities and benefits come with becoming a guest elder of your esteemed guild? Upon hearing this, Lu Chongqing asked aloud. When this shopkeeper who had come over, he had guessed that his visit wasn't simply a courtesy call. It turned out he wanted to invite him to join the Commerce Guild. Originally, when he was at the Nine Dragons Market, making purchases for second-grade talisman crafting materials from the Qingyun Commerce Guild and Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had also been asked about this matter. But as he hadn't revealed too much at that time, no managers approached him with inquiries. Receiving the invitation now, he couldn't help but be curious. He wanted to learn more about the responsibilities and treatment that came with joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild. If fellow Daoist is willing to become a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild, you would only need to craft a batch of talismans for our guild each month, or provide talismans urgently when our guild requires them. As for the benefits, not only is there a generous monthly salary, but fellow Daoist will also get an internal price and enjoy discounts when purchasing items from our Qingyun Commerce Guild. Furthermore, whatever materials you need, our Qingyun Commerce Guild can procure them for you. Moreover, our guild hosts a grand skills competition every year, where fellow Daoists can communicate with many peers in the same field, exchange insights, and grow together. Fellow Daoists should know that our Qingyun Commerce Guild is backed by the Qingyun sect. If fellow Daoists make significant contributions to our guild, we have an internal recommendation quota from the Qingyun sect which can be used to refer fellow Daoist into the Qingyun sect. Within the sect, fellow Daoist can not only receive instruction from core elders but might even be favored by an elder and taken in as a disciple. Shopkeeper who began to speak slowly. Join the Qingyun sect? After hearing this, Lu Chongqing's eyebrows shot up. He roughly understood the biggest benefit of joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild now. Not only could he enjoy various benefits and treatment but also had the channel to enter the Qingyun sect. For many loose cultivators, being able to join an immortal sect like Qingyun sect at an older age was naturally a much sought-after opportunity. I see, thank you Shopkeeper Hu for informing me. However, I currently do not have any intention of joining other factions. I will need to consider it for a while, and if I have any inclination in this regard later on, I will trouble shopkeeper Hu then. Lu Chongqing slightly bowed with a hint of apology. In his view, joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild and having the backing of the Qingyun sect was not bad. Not only was it good to benefit from a powerful backer, but it would also be much more convenient to collect materials in the future. As for the responsibilities, if he only needed to craft a batch of talismans each month, it wouldn't be too difficult for him, who had nearly 100% success rate in talisman making. It would just mean spending a bit more time and effort, and being slightly inconvenienced. However, since his current identity was fake, it was naturally impossible for him to join the Qingyun Commerce Guild. Should he reveal himself to be a second-grade talisman master in the future, it would be worth considering. Of course, that is understandable. If Han fellow Taoist is interested, you can come and find me any time, shopkeeper Hu said with a smile, not at all disappointed. Because such matters were quite normal. To have honed a skill to such a level, he was obviously invited many times already. It was possible he was currently serving in some capacity within a certain faction. How could he agree just because someone asked? What he needed to do was extend the invitation and leave a good impression. Hoping that when Lu Chongqing was inclined in this direction, he would consider their Qingyun Commerce Guild. Senior Han, here are your items. A total of 24,880 spirit stones, deducting the 11,291 spirit stones for the materials and talisman you sold, you need to pay 13,589 spirit stones. At this moment, the female cultivator receptionist brought over the items Lu Chongqing had purchased and asked him to check them. All right, there's no problem. Lu Chongqing checked the materials in the storage bag and nodded. Fellow Taoist Han, you can just pay 13,000, shopkeeper Hu said with a chuckle, rounding down the amount. Thank you, shopkeeper Hu. Lu Chongqing, realizing the show of goodwill, immediately expressed his thanks. He paid with spirit stones and then took his leave. After leaving the Qingyun Commerce Guild, Lu Chongqing went to an inn, as usual, to double-check his items. Although a big store like Qingyun Commerce Guild wouldn't usually do such things, one must always be cautious. Having confirmed there were no issues, Lu Chongqing changed his appearance and prepared to visit other shops, to see if he could purchase the 7-colored copper and earth heart stone he needed. Chapter 325, The Concept of Dao Soldiers, Jiang Country's #1 Loose Cultivator _1. Finally, everything's gathered. As he stepped out of the 6th shop, Lu Chongqing let out a sigh of relief. At the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had purchased earth fire stones. But after asking around several shops, none had the 7-colored copper. Fortunately, luck was on his side. In this shop for 2,000 spirit stones, he managed to acquire the last material needed for casting the 7 luminaries heart lamp. Once I return to Qingzhou Mountain and condense the 7 luminaries heart lamp, I'll be able to forge this life-bound spiritual artifact. Having gathered all the necessary materials, Lu Chongqing was in great spirits. After all, it would have been quite upsetting had he missed just one material. Now that I've broken through to foundation establishment, I should also buy some elixir medicines suitable for increasing cultivation level during the foundation establishment stage. Lu Chongqing thought to himself. If one wished to cultivate quickly, consuming medicinal pills was indispensable. Relying on personal cultivation alone, it would take 8 to 9 years to progress from the first level to the second level of foundation establishment. But with enough elixir medicines and the aid of the 7 luminaries heart lamp to refine the elixir toxicity and purify mana, it's estimated it would take just 2 to 3 years to reach the second level. Immediately after, Lu Chongqing headed to the old and established Elixir Cauldron Pavilion to inquire about elixirs suitable for the foundation establishment stage. Senior, our shop has harmonizing energy elixirs and origin nurturing elixirs suitable for the foundation establishment stage. However, the origin nurturing elixirs are all sold out, leaving only 1 bottle of harmonizing energy elixir. If Senior is interested, you may pay a deposit, and we will notify you once we restock. Upon hearing Lu Chongqing's inquiry about foundation establishment elixir medicines, the shop clerk immediately responded with respect. Only 1 bottle of harmonizing energy elixir? Upon hearing this, Lu Chongqing felt somewhat disappointed. But he knew that, just like second-rank talismans, most shops didn't stock many second-rank elixir medicines. unless one was acquainted with a second-rank alchemist. Otherwise, it would be impossible to make large purchases. How many spirit stones for the harmonizing energy elixir? And do you have elixirs that increase cultivation level for the energy refinement late stage? Lu Chongqing continued to inquire. Senior, the harmonizing energy elixir is 1,200 spirit stones. For the energy refinement late stage cultivation enhancing elixirs, our shop currently has the energy refining powder, energy nurturing elixir, and the condensing energy elixir. After quoting the price, the clerk took out a jade scroll and began introducing Lu Chongqing to various elixir medicines suitable for the energy refinement late stage. These elixirs were also somewhat beneficial to foundation establishment cultivators. For example, the energy refining powder could increase the speed of refining nature's spiritual energy. The energy nurturing elixir could nourish spiritual energy and accelerate its circulation within the body. However, relatively speaking, the effects of these elixirs on foundation establishment cultivators were quite ordinary. Apart from the harmonizing energy elixir, Lu Chongqing also purchased the store's remaining 3 bottles of energy nurturing elixir and 1 bottle of condensing energy elixir. In total, he spent 2,200 spirit stones. Just as Lu Chongqing had finished paying the spirit stones and was about to leave. "Little you, has the customer who reserved the 3 Suns elixir not come to claim it yet?" "Shopkeeper, that customer has not yet arrived. 3 days ago, I sent Xiao Wu to contact the customer at the provided address, but still couldn't reach them." The shopkeeper came downstairs and asked one of the employees. 3 Suns elixir? Upon hearing this conversation, Lu Chongqing paused mid-step. He was familiar with this elixir. A second-rank spirit pill. Derived from the idea of 3 suns bring prosperity. After consumption, it could not only increase cultivation level, saving years of arduous cultivation, but also eradicate any hidden illnesses or risks within a cultivator's body, as if shone upon by the bright sun, dissolving them all away. It has a somewhat miraculous effect on cultivators at the perfection stage of energy refinement advancing to foundation establishment. Even humorously dubbed the Junior Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Chongqing knew of the 3 Suns elixir and had initially thought to prepare one for himself. However, this elixir was considered a rather rare second-rank elixir medicine. He had visited several shops initially and had not managed to purchase it. Now, hearing this conversation, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but entertain the thought of buying it. He was already at foundation establishment and didn't need it for himself, but he could buy it as a gift for his wife Lu Miaoge. Currently, Lu Miaoge's cultivation level was at the 8th level of energy refinement. It was estimated she would need another 2 to 3 years to break through to the 9th level. By then, Lu Miaoge would be in her 40s. Although at that age, if one could reach the perfection stage of energy refinement and attempt foundation establishment before 60, as one grows older, the challenge of achieving foundation establishment grows greater. Naturally, he hoped his wife could cultivate to the perfection stage of energy refinement sooner. Moreover, despite Lu Miaoge having recovered from the previous assassination attempt, it was uncertain if any hidden issues remained. Possessing a 3 Suns elixir would not only increase cultivation level, but also eliminate any hidden risks in her body, granting Lu Miaoge a greater hope of successfully reaching foundation establishment. "Shopkeeper, since the original buyer has not come to claim the pill, is this 3 Suns elixir still for sale? If you are willing to sell, how much would it cost?" Lu Chongqing respectfully inquired, looking at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was slightly surprised by the question, but immediately, after hearing from the clerk that Lu Chongqing had just spent over 2,000 spirit stones and might be a foundation establishment cultivator, he cheerfully said, "If Daoist friend is interested, our shop naturally is willing to sell." "The 3 Suns elixir is priced at 3,800 spirit stones," the shopkeeper declared. "Agreed, I'll take the 3 Suns elixir," Lu Chongqing said promptly, nodding. The price wasn't cheap, but it wasn't very expensive either. After all, the prices in large shops tend to be a little higher. Besides, precious elixirs often fluctuate in price. "Shopkeeper, I don't have enough spirit stones on me. Could I offset the cost with talismans?" Lu Chongqing took out 3 talismans and asked. He didn't know exactly how many spirit stones he had, as he had not counted them. But it was roughly between 3,000 and 4,000. In such circumstances, it's only right to keep some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Second-rank lower-quality talismans? As the shopkeeper of Elixir Cauldron Pavilion, he naturally had an extraordinary eye. He took the talismans, looked them over for a moment, and said politely, "Second-rank talismans can indeed be used for offsetting the cost, but our shop can only accept them at 60% of the market price." Chapter 326. The Concept of Dao Soldiers, Jiang Country's #1 loose cultivator. Alright, a 40% discount it is. Lu Chongqing nodded slightly upon hearing this, agreeing to the discounted price. He couldn't possibly run to the Qingyun Commerce Guild now to ask if they were still purchasing talismans. Immediately, he took out 10 second-rank talismans, deducted 2,500 spirit stones, and paid an additional 1,300 spirit stones. I wonder when he'll be able to draw a second-rank alchemy skill. Otherwise, not only are second-rank elixir medicines hard to purchase, but their prices are also high. The little money I painstakingly earn all goes into this. Tucking away the Three Suns elixir, Lu Chongqing left the store and couldn't help but think to himself. Currently, his talismans were yielding a 20-fold profit. Among the 4 mainstream skills of cultivation, the profit margins for elixir medicines are only higher than those for talisman making. It isn't just about making money that simple. He also thought that with alchemy skills of his own, he wouldn't have to worry about elixir medicines. Not just alchemy, but formation skills are also needed. If I want to establish my own family, it's essential to have someone in the clan who understands formations. Otherwise, if a family has to rely on others for formations, they would be oblivious to any loopholes or defects. Lu Chongqing considered in his mind. He felt that the road to establishing a family on his own seemed quite long and difficult. Next, he'll find a bookstore to ask about Dao soldiers, and that should be enough. Lu Chongqing didn't dwell on this. He prepared to find a bookstore to learn about Dao soldiers. After looking around, Lu Chongqing saw 10,000 Laws bookstore. He recognized it as a shop selling cultivation technique classics. He went in and inquired about books on Dao soldiers. Dao soldiers. May I inquire which aspect of Dao soldiers you're interested in learning about? The shop owner asked with some surprise upon hearing Lu Chongqing's intention. Regarding Dao soldiers, I've only heard a little and am quite interested, so I want to understand more in detail. Any classics on this subject will do. Lu Chongqing said so. Information about Dao soldiers is not widely known in the cultivation world, and there are very few classics on the subject. I happen to know a bit about Dao soldiers. If you're willing to pay 100 spirit stones for tea, I'm willing to enlighten you and give a brief introduction, the shop owner said with a smile. People like him who run bookstores not only sell cultivation technique classics. They also possess a wealth of knowledge about many aspects of the cultivation world. If you can resolve my queries, naturally, I am willing to offer the 100 spirit stones for tea. Lu Chongqing took out 50 spirit stones and spoke. At the Nine Dragons Market, he knew that the monopoly on high-end knowledge in this world was severe. The absence of related classics on Dao soldiers also indicated that the subject is advanced and known by few. Therefore, 100 spirit stones for tea wasn't considered steep. In some shops selling information, a single piece of news could cost thousands to tens of thousands of spirit stones. You are straightforward. Seeing this, the shop owner smiled. He invited Lu Chongqing to sit down, poured a cup of spiritual tea, and began to talk about information related to Dao soldiers. Actually, Dao soldier is just a general term. Like puppets, demon beasts, corpses, ghost soldiers, artifact spirits, and even cultivators can all be referred to as some type of Dao soldier. However, being called a Dao soldier often means having a certain quantity of the same kind, much like the soldiers and generals of the secular world. The shop owner took a sip of his tea and said, broadly speaking, Dao soldiers can be classified into 3 types: domesticated soldiers, refined soldiers, and magic soldiers. Lu Chongqing also took a sip of his spiritual tea, nodded slightly, and signaled for the other party to continue. The first type, domesticated soldiers, is as the name suggests. Humans or demon beasts are raised as Dao soldiers. However, this kind of domestication is not ordinary breeding. It involves using some cultivation technique, secret technique, or soldier training method to raise cultivators or demon beasts as Dao soldiers. These Dao soldiers possess not only cultivation level and mana but are also capable of fighting and managing armies, as well as arranging formations. Many formations don't require human manipulation, but the most formidable formations still need many people to control them. That's where the role of Dao soldiers becomes evident. I've heard that some profound techniques for raising domesticated soldiers enable the resulting Dao soldiers not only to form great formations but also to enhance their cultivation level and strength via the formations. The shop owner took another sip of tea, slowly introducing the topic. People can also be raised as Dao soldiers? Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised to hear this. He, all beings have a spirit. It's not strange for us to be raised as Dao soldiers. The shop owner chuckled, finishing his cup of tea. He continued, both the secular world and the cultivation world have practices of training loyal warriors. You can consider these as a type of raised Dao soldiers as well. However, raising Dao soldiers usually involves hundreds or thousands of them, and it often takes decades or even centuries to raise a force. That's why few powers choose to raise humans as Dao soldiers. The shop owner refilled his tea. Why is that? Lu Chongqing asked. Because raising a force of Dao soldiers not only consumes time and energy but also resources. Only large powers have the ability to raise Dao soldiers. Raising humans as Dao soldiers, on one hand, is against the natural order. Moreover, the resources required for raising humans as Dao soldiers are too vast, and by the time the Dao soldiers are completed, human lifespans are too short. Compared to humans, demon beasts not only live longer but also consume far fewer resources, making them ideal for becoming domesticated soldiers. That's why if a power is to raise Dao soldiers, they would undoubtedly choose to raise demon beasts as Dao soldiers instead of humans. The shop owner spoke, refilling Lu Chongqing's tea as well. I see. Lu Chongqing had a realization upon hearing this. Chapter 327. The concept of Dao soldiers. Jiang country's #1 loose cultivator. Regarding these domesticated Dao soldiers, there was now a general understanding. It involved using some kind of cultivation technique to train humans or demon beasts into a kind of death warriors. But these death warriors not only possessed high combat effectiveness, but they could also form battle formations. Whether in magical combat against enemies or other matters, they were extraordinary. May I ask, fellow Daoist, what about refined soldiers and magic soldiers? What's the situation with them? Lu Chongqing sipped his tea and continued to inquire. As for refined soldiers, for example, certain puppets with unique characteristics, spirits of magical treasures, or those created through techniques such as corpse refinement and ghost nurturing. Any Dao soldiers artificially made are collectively known as refined soldiers. As for magic soldiers, they are mostly magical treasures capable of cultivating and nurturing Dao soldiers. For instance, in the demon path there is an extremely famous magical treasure called the Myriad Soul Banner, which, after killing human or demon beasts, can refine their souls into the banner, turning them into fierce ghosts. Such are known as magic soldiers. What most of us refer to as Dao soldiers generally means those that have been cultivated, and the cultivators and forces that can cultivate Dao soldiers in the cultivation world are truly few and far between, which is why so few people know of Dao soldiers. The shopkeeper lightly sipped his tea, smiling as he spoke. Domesticated soldiers? Refined soldiers? Magic soldiers? Lu Chongqing, upon hearing about the 3 types of Dao soldiers, nodded thoughtfully as if gaining a rough concept of them. So with that said, which category of Dao soldiers does my golden armor bean mother fall into? Lu Chongqing felt that his golden armor bean mother didn't seem to fit into any of the 3 types of Dao soldiers the shopkeeper mentioned. It was somewhat like a domesticated soldier, but also somewhat like a magic soldier. He remembered the system had introduced it as a spirit plant type Dao soldier. It seemed to lean more towards the domesticated soldier type. However, he didn't pay it much mind. The shopkeeper was only a Qi refinement peak cultivator after all. His understanding of Dao soldiers was bound to be limited and couldn't possibly encompass everything. Besides, rewards from the system couldn't be measured by ordinary standards. May I ask, fellow Daoist, in our Jiang country cultivation realm, are there any forces that have Dao soldiers? Lu Chongqing continued to inquire. Within the 4 great immortal sects of our Jiang country, the spirit taming sect is renowned for taming spiritual beasts, so they definitely have domesticated Dao soldiers. But whether the Heavenly Sword sect, Qing Yun sect, and Wuxia sect have Dao soldiers, I really do not know. In our Jiang country's 3 great immortal cities, the Azure Phoenix Immortal of the Azure Phoenix Immortal City has domesticated a force of Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers. Rumor has it, 200 years ago, Azure Phoenix Immortal, with a power of 500 Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers, both shocked Jiang country and established Azure Phoenix Immortal City, hence earning the title of Jiang country's #1 loose cultivator. The shopkeeper spoke. Azure Phoenix Immortal. Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers. Lu Chongqing was somewhat surprised by these words. Naturally aware of Azure Phoenix Immortal City, he had heard of the great reputation of the Azure Phoenix Immortal. Yet, he did not know that this Azure Phoenix Immortal made a name for himself by relying on a force of Dao soldiers to establish Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Indeed, rumor has it that Azure Phoenix Immortal back in the day was just in the initial stage of core formation, but with 500 Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers, he was able to go head-to-head with those in the late stage of core formation. The shopkeeper spoke of Azure Phoenix Immortal with a look of admiration and longing in his eyes. The Azure Phoenix Immortal, as a loose cultivator without any backing, yet managed to condense a true elixir. Furthermore, he established Azure Phoenix Immortal City, a sacred site for loose cultivators, on the border between Jiang country and Yu country, naturally earning the worship of numerous loose cultivators and setting a goal for them to strive for. As expected, those who have made a name for themselves in the cultivation world, especially loose cultivators, all fit the mold of chosen children of destiny. Lu Chongqing felt that this Azure Phoenix Immortal was indeed formidable after hearing these words. At his current state of early foundation establishment, he felt he could barely compete with those at the late stage of foundation establishment. The gap in strength between stages of core formation would be even greater. Yet this Azure Phoenix Immortal was able to confront someone in the late stage of core formation during his initial stage. However, Azure Phoenix Immortal's Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers are also amongst the top ranks of the many Dao soldiers. As far as I know, one of the 3 great cultivation families in our Jiang country, the beast-taming Su family, has also domesticated a force of Water Serpent Dao soldiers and Fire Raven Dao soldiers, but they are far from matching the Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers of the Azure Phoenix Immortal. The shopkeeper continued to introduce the Dao soldiers. The beast-taming Su family, Water Serpent Dao soldiers, Fire Raven Dao soldiers. Lu Chongqing nodded slightly upon hearing this. He had heard of this beast-taming Su family, one of Jiang country's 3 great cultivation families. With a nascent soul immortal sitting in residence, it was a true cultivation family. It is not at all comparable to small cultivation families like Qingzhu's Lu family or Red Leaf Valley's Chen family. Unexpectedly, this family not only has a nascent soul ancestor presiding but also cultivates Dao soldiers. However, he discovered that the store owner spoke only of domesticating Dao soldiers. There was no mention of refining soldiers or magic soldiers. Right away, Lu Chongqing inquired about refining soldiers and magic soldiers. Dao soldiers are indeed rare and difficult to cultivate. Compared to domesticated soldiers, refining soldiers have more associations with the heretical path, and naturally, they are less seen in Jiang country. Centuries ago, the royal family of Yu country, which bordered our Jiang country, secretly stirred up successive wars to select a batch of battle-hardened soldiers and refine a type of Dao soldier. When the several great immortal sects of Yu country learned of this, they directly exterminated the entire royal family. As for magic soldiers, they are even more exceedingly rare. Apart from the infamous myriad soul banner of the demon path, I've heard that the Yiming Ghost sect of Jin Kingdom has a treasured artifact known as the Myriad Ghost's Blood Pool, which uses the blood of myriad spirits for nourishment and can foster a type of Dao soldier. The shop owner said this and then finished another cup of tea. After speaking, he also turned to Lu Chongqing and said, "Fellow Daoist, this is all I know about Dao soldiers. Thank you for enlightening me and broadening my horizons." Lu Chongqing immediately cupped his hands in thanks. He handed over the remaining 50 spirit stones for the tea and then took his leave. These Dao soldiers really do sound impressive. If I could draw a magical treasure capable of nurturing Dao soldiers from the system lottery, perhaps I could cultivate my own Dao soldiers, Lu Chongqing thought to himself. Having understood roughly the 3 types of Dao soldiers, he felt magic soldiers were the best. Whether it was domesticated soldiers or refined soldiers, they were too difficult in terms of time and effort. Only magic soldiers, which could be nurtured and cultivated using a magical treasure, were the best option. It was also the most likely for him to obtain directly through the system lottery. Without further thought, Lu Chongqing found an inn to disguise himself in new clothes and then quickly left Qingyun Market. Quite smart to know to change his appearance and disguise. But daring to compete with me, Mengi Bai for a woman, he must pay the price. At the entrance and exit of the marketplace, atop the second-floor balcony, a young man in his 20s, bursting with vigor, sensed something and stood up, looking outwards. In his hand, a golden hamster appeared, pointing out Lu Chongqing, who had just left the marketplace, from the crowd. Lu Chongqing, after stepping out of the marketplace, did not ride the iron feather eagle. He also did not control a flying artifact. Instead, he attempted to fly by controlling the air. After all, the most significant feature of a breakthrough from Qi refining to foundation establishment is the ability to fly through the air without relying on flying artifacts. Now that he had broken through to foundation establishment, it was natural for him to try out and experience it. With a movement of his mental spirit, Lu Chongqing naturally rose into the air and began to fly through the air. Many cultivators were coming and going next to Qingyun Market. Seeing Lu Chongqing flying, they all gave way, showing envy and respect. Even in large marketplaces like Qingyun Market, energy refining cultivators are more common. Seeing a cultivator flying through the air, they naturally understood he was a foundation establishment great cultivator, and they didn't dare to offend him. Because if this great cultivator was in a bad mood and felt they were in the way, a simple slap could kill them without anywhere to seek justice. The reason energy refining cultivators cannot fly is that their spiritual power is insufficient to support their bodies, and they need to rely on flying artifacts. But after breaking through to foundation establishment, one undergoes a profound transformation, shedding the mortal coil, and the spiritual energy within transforms into mana, becoming more than 10 times more robust, enabling the body to lift off and fly through the air. Lu Chongqing tried out flying and understood the principle behind it. Immediately, he descended from the air, released the iron feather eagle, and flew towards Qingzhou Mountain. Even though foundation establishment cultivators can fly through the air, they cannot do so for long distances without incurring some consumption. Therefore, it's still preferable to travel by mount or artifact. Meanwhile, Mengi Bai left Qingyun Market and released a palm-sized golden hamster from his spirit beast bag. Which direction did he go? He fed it an elixir medicine and spoke faintly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The golden hamster nibbled on the elixir and immediately pointed in one direction. Chapter 328. Sword Cultivator Duel. Who killed my grandson? Under 1, Dreams of Dust. I cannot awaken alone. Atop the Qingyun platform, my true self is shown. Yin and Yang, 5 elements, all are clear, forming a jade platform to establish the Tao foundation. I walk the great Tao alone, not of my own will. Free in the mortal world, prosperity spans myriad ages. Humans are not heartless like grass and trees. I cut down the mortal body, not the heart. Lu Chongqing stood with his hands behind his back, atop the iron feather eagle, his blue robe flapping in the wind, reciting the settling poem he had composed to himself. After flying for several hundred miles, Lu Chongqing suddenly sensed a fierce aura behind him, rushing towards him like lightning. Confronted with this ferocious aura, Lu Chongqing's face darkened slightly, his mind alert. After all, having been in the cultivation world for so many years, he was quite experienced. Having just left the marketplace and encountering this, he couldn't help but be cautious. With past experience to guide him, Lu Chongqing immediately stood in the air on his flying artifact, and he retracted the iron feather eagle, a mere means of transportation, into his spiritual pet bag. The next moment, Lu Chongqing saw a golden escape light, fast like a shooting star, tearing through the air as it charged ferociously toward him. Is it him? As the escape light drew near, Lu Chongqing immediately recognized a young man about 24 or 25 years old, dressed in a golden robe, riding a flying shuttle. It was the same young man he had seen in the Qingyun Market when Xiaofan had emerged from the cave dwelling with him. Mengi Bai. Lu Chongqing had guessed then that the other might hold pursuit intentions toward Xiaofan and, upon seeing the close interaction between him and Xiaofan, may harbor jealousy or something of the sort. He had changed his appearance for this very reason. Yet, despite his many disguises and altered appearances, This man had fixed his sights on him and was coming directly to assassinate him. Swoosh! Meng Yibai approached Lu Chongqing with a chilling expression, not uttering a word. A dazzling golden sword rainbow slashed towards Lu Chongqing, sharp and swift. Lu Chongqing, well prepared, raised his right hand leisurely. The 7 luminary sword light surged forth, cleaving the air and shattering the golden sword rainbow. Who are you, and why do you attack me out of the blue? Lu Chongqing called out, looking at Meng Yibai before him. If it were an ordinary robber cultivator, he naturally wouldn't waste words with them. But having chatted with Xiaofan, he knew the young man was not only a disciple of Qing Yun's sect but also had an elder who was a false core immortal. If possible, Lu Chongqing really didn't want to make an enemy of him. After all, to kill someone like that would likely invite trouble. Moreover, Lu Chongqing also wanted to know how the other could see through his disguises and lock onto his trail. Indeed, you have some skill. Just established your foundation, and you can break my sword qi. As for why I attack you, I think you are well aware of the reason in your heart. Meng Yibai sneered. He stood tall on the flying shuttle, like a pike piercing the heavens, proud and sharp. I truly don't know where I have offended you? Lu Chongqing put on an expression of a wry smile. Since you don't know, then take your doubts with you to the grave. Meng Yibai did not speak further, coldly shouted, formed a spell with his hands. His aura became fierce, causing a sound of golden resonance in the void. A splendid gold flying sword appeared. Countless golden runes flowed along the sword body, and with sword qi that crisscrossed, it launched a sharp attack on Lu Chongqing. Sigh, it seems there's no room for talk. Lu Chongqing, seeing the approaching golden flying sword, his expression solemnly changed, and stopped talking. Knowing this man's domineering and arrogant nature and the jealousy and murderous intent he held, he was simply unwilling to talk further. Since that's the case, let's see whose flying sword is sharper. Lu Chongqing said coldly. He wasn't to be messed with. And having just completed his foundation establishment, he was also eager to test his own abilities. He smacked his storage bag and a blood-colored pair of scissors appeared. With a surge of mana, they transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, roaring ferociously at the golden flying sword. Meanwhile, a pale white flying sword appeared in front of him. Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. Lu Chongqing formed a spell with 2 hands, and rainbow lights were infused into the flying sword. The pale white flying sword trembled fiercely, and 7 colors of treasured light flowed as it created 2 identical flying swords. The next moment, another 2 identical flying swords appeared. In total, 8 flying swords formed before Lu Chongqing. The 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture 2nd level not only has the divine skill, the 7 Luminaries' Heart Lamp, which can create a life-bound spiritual artifact, it also has 2 spell divine skills. The first spell is known as the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. When facing an enemy, this technique can create up to 8 sword shadows identical to the actual flying sword. The sword shadows can not only confound the enemy's sight, but each also possesses 30% of the original's power. The second spell is named the Shimmering Shadow Condensation Sword Technique. After deploying the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique and creating several sword shadows, all shadows can be converged into the flying sword for the strongest slash. An average beginner who practices the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique can at most create 1 or 2 sword shadows. But Lu Chongqing is thoroughly familiar with the 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture, requiring no time-consuming practice. Additionally, possessing the Profound Origin Bead, creating many sword shadows without worrying about excessive mana consumption is of no concern. You're a sword cultivator too. Meng Yibai, upon seeing Lu Chongqing's completely formidable presence, as if he had transformed into a different person, using the technique of division and shadow, expressed surprise. Cultivators can roughly be divided into the Scholarly Cultivator faction and the Martial Cultivator faction. The Scholarly Cultivator faction primarily obtains cultivation resources through production and trade. The Martial Cultivator faction primarily obtains cultivation resources through battle and plunder. Sword cultivators are a classic example within the Martial Cultivator faction. They are known for their straightforwardness, characteristically having formidable combat abilities and sharp techniques in battle. This was why, seeing Lu Chongqing with Xiaofan, he felt displeasure in his heart. Harboring a grudge his thoughts troubled, he decided to directly take Lu Chongqing's life. Chapter 329. Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? Since that's the case, let me show you the true capabilities of a sword cultivator. Meng Yibai's hands formed seals, and the golden flying sword suddenly let out a clear hum, emitting streaks of sword chi. The sword chi swept through like a storm, causing the blood-red flood dragon to wail and its body to dim. Go! Lu Changsheng's expression remained unchanged as the 9 flying swords in front of him shot out simultaneously. 3 headed towards the golden flying sword, and 6 towards Meng Yibai. Meng Yibai watched the approaching flying swords with a slight frown. He found it difficult to distinguish the real from the illusionary among the flying swords sent by Lu Changsheng. His expression did not change, and he showed no panic. His eyebrows raised like swords, and with a slap to his dantian, he spat out a gleaming sword bead. This sword bead was round and glinted like a golden core, rotating around him and forming a net of sword chi. The sword bead, round in form yet embodying the intent of the sword, combined hardness with softness. Sharp enough to cut through metal like mud, and soft enough to coil around one's finger, its power far surpassed that of other flying swords of the same level. Furthermore, this sword bead was his life-bound spiritual artifact, possessing terrifying power. Clang clang clang, the 6 illusionary flying swords clashed against the net of the sword bead, sparking and ringing like metal striking against metal. Indeed, the sword bead was extraordinary, preventing Lu Changsheng's illusionary flying swords from breaking through its defense and even nicking the blades. I have only recently reached foundation establishment and my resources are insufficient. Many techniques have not caught up. To avoid any accidents, I must conclude this battle quickly. After a brief exchange, Lu Changsheng had a rough estimate of Meng Yibai's strength. His cultivation level appeared to be in the middle stage of foundation establishment. However, with a profound origin bead by his side, his mana was not weaker than that of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. In fact, in terms of the amount of mana, he was even slightly superior. In a battle of equals, he naturally did not fear his opponent. But since the opponent was a disciple of the immortal sex and had a false core immortal as a senior, it was certain he had many tricks and means of preservation, so a swift victory was best. Your so-called sword cultivator abilities are just this. Taste my sword. Shimmering Shadow Condensation Sword Technique. Lu Changsheng formed seals with his hands, and the mana in his body surged like a river, with the mana within his dantian's profound origin bead rapidly circulating. This caused the 8 illusionary flying swords to tremble violently and shine brilliantly. Subsequently, they transformed into streaks of 7-colored rainbow light, merging into the pristine white flying sword, which expanded greatly, transforming into a giant sword over 3 meters long. Slash! Lu Changsheng pointed like a sword and commanded the flying sword to cut down. The giant sword rose, with 7 colors of divine light swirling around it, and an endless surge of fierce and chilling sword chi seemed ready to extinguish all vitality as it slashed towards Meng Yibai with astounding momentum. Clang clang clang. Under the terrifying onslaught of the 7-colored giant sword, the golden flying sword let out a distressed cry as though it couldn't bear the pressure. How is this possible? How can you, a cultivator who has just broken through to the foundation establishment, have the ability to use such techniques, to have such power? Meng Yibai looked at the 7-colored giant sword, his eyelid twitching uncontrollably as shock took over his expression. As a sword cultivator, he was already considered unbeaten among his peers. Thus, he had not regarded Lu Changsheng, who had only just broken through foundation establishment, as a threat. Earlier, Lu Changsheng's shimmering shadow technique had merely made him acknowledge that Lu was an impressive talent. No wonder he had caught the eye of a prodigy like Xiaofan. But now this technique was beyond what mere talent could account for. Or rather, this was definitely not a technique that a cultivator who had just broken through foundation establishment should have. Lu Changsheng's expression was indifferent, and he didn't reply, intent on slaying Meng Yibai with one sword. This youth has such astonishing methods. He must have obtained an unparalleled sword cultivation inheritance. Even if it costs me, it will be worth it to slay him. Meng Yibai's body burst with sword chi, and he took out a large tortoise shell to block the attack from the giant sword. The golden sword bead, after forming a heaven-covering sword chi net, suddenly burst forth in a flourish of sharp light, tearing through the air as it aimed for Lu Changsheng. Simultaneously, a blue talisman appeared in his hand, glowing and pulsing with energy. Talisman treasure. Lu Chongqing immediately noticed Meng Yibai's action. He recognized the blue talisman in his hand as a talisman treasure. Indeed, befitting a disciple of the immortal sex, talisman treasures seemed to be standard issue. Previously Xiaofan had a talisman treasure by her side, and now so did this person. Go! Lu Chongqing did not bring out his talisman treasure, the golden light brick, to counterattack. His golden light brick magical treasure had limited remaining power and was not suitable for prolonged use. He slapped his storage bag and released a top-grade shield magic artifact and his second-rank puppet to block the sword bead. Next, he channeled a continuous flow of mana into the seven-colored giant sword, pushing its power to the extreme, making it overwhelmingly powerful. Crack! In that moment, the tortoise-shell magic artifact immediately showed a crack. Not good. Meng Yibai did not expect Lu Chongqing's assault to be so aggressive. His own tortoise-shell was a low-grade spiritual artifact. Yet, it seemed so fragile against the onslaught of the giant sword. Seeing Lu Chongqing also had a second-rank puppet, he had no choice but to call his sword bead back to defend. Sword chi burst forth, forming a spiraling net of sword chi in the sky, continuing to block the onslaught of the seven-colored giant sword as he sought time to activate his talisman treasure. Within a few breaths, Meng Yibai activated the blue talisman treasure. With a clear sound, the talisman treasure transformed into a small water-like flowing blue jade ruler. The jade ruler radiated a dazzling light in the air. Just like Lu Chongqing's previous pristine white flying sword, it split in 2, then 4, and then 8, creating more and more jade rulers. In no time, Meng Yibai's front was covered with a multitude of blue jade rulers, totaling over 100. These jade rulers were neatly arranged, forming a barrier in front of the seven-colored giant sword. Go! Meng Yibai formed seals with his hands, directing the sword bead, which was still clashing with the giant sword, to transform into a golden ray of light and strike towards Lu Chongqing. Chapter 330. Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? Simultaneously, a series of blue jade rulers shot towards Lu Chongqing. Although his talisman treasure was quite ordinary, it excelled in both offense and defense. As a sword cultivator, once you start defending, it's the beginning of defeat. Lu Chongqing's expression remained calm as he spoke lightly. His words aimed to influence the mental spirit of his opponent. With his divine sense, he manipulated the magical shield and the second-rank puppet to rush forward to the sword bead for defense. At the same time, his hand sliced through the air like a blade, unleashing sword lights towards the blue jade rulers. He saw several blue jade rulers disintegrate under his 7 luminary sword lights, giving him a rough idea of the ruler's might. Instantly, a talisman appeared in his hand. Earlier, from the hands of the red-robed youth, he had obtained 7 second-rank supreme talismans. Among them were 4 attack talismans. Second-rank supreme talisman, Thunderfire Immaculate Talisman. Boom boom boom, Lu Chongqing's talisman was activated, transforming into endless celestial thunder and earth fire, sweeping towards the overwhelming tide of jade rulers with an astonishing momentum, causing a furious barrage. The myriad of jade rulers, already struggling to withstand the 7-colored giant sword, started to tremble wildly, shattering and then splitting anew. Go! Seeing his second-rank puppet fall back step by step in front of the sword bead and suffer damage all over, Lu Chongqing immediately reactivated the blood-red scissors, transforming them into a blood-colored flood dragon to charge at the golden sword bead. After all, repairing the puppet afterwards would not only cost money but also time. Little guy, keep an eye on him. Lu Chongqing released the 6-winged golden silkworm from his spiritual pet bag. Though the 6-winged golden silkworm only had late first-grade strength for now, as long as the opponent wasn't a body cultivator, hiding in the dark, it could still deliver an unexpected strike. Damn it! He's just a cultivator who recently broke through to foundation establishment. Where does he get such profound mana to support these techniques? Meng Yibai felt his mana rapidly draining from within, his complexion exceedingly unsightly. With his strength at the 5th layer of foundation establishment, his mana was swiftly depleting, almost exhausted. Lu Chongqing, however, was a cultivator who had just broken through foundation establishment, with less than half his own mana. Yet, while using such terrifying divine skills and techniques like the 7-colored giant sword, he could still nonchalantly cast other spells and activate spiritual artifacts, which was utterly beyond Meng's comprehension. Crack! Just at that moment, a crisp sound echoed. Hovering in mid-air, the tortoise shell filled with cracks finally shattered completely, allowing the myriad jade rulers to break and divide continuously under the seven-colored giant sword. No, there's something wrong with this kid, something seriously wrong. He must have some sort of artifact on him that increases and stores mana. Otherwise, having just broken through Foundation establishment, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. Seeing Lu Chongqing showing no signs of mana depletion and launching yet another talisman with explosive force, Meng Yibai's face turned extremely sour. Making a snap decision in his mind, he prepared to flee. Sword cultivators may value a relentless advance and unobstructed thoughts, but they are not fools. Knowing that where there's life there's hope, there's no need for a bitter struggle to the death. Meng Yibai's mana surged throughout his body, fully activating his talisman treasure to fend off the terrifying assault of the giant sword. Meanwhile, he recalled the blood-colored flood dragon and the dimly lit second-rank puppet sword bead to his side. Lu Chongqing, witnessing this act, instantly knew something was wrong. His blood-colored scissors and second-rank puppet were no match for the sword bead. The question was whether he would break the opponent's talisman treasure first, or if the opponent's sword bead would destroy his second-rank puppet and blood-colored scissors first. But now, the opponent was withdrawing the offensive, which clearly indicated a problem. Could he be thinking of fleeing? Lu Changsheng's heart skipped a beat, realizing that the other might be planning an escape. Otherwise, as a sword cultivator, to abandon offense and focus solely on defense in these circumstances was indeed illogical. Without hesitation, Lu Chongqing ceased to conserve his resources. He took out his talisman treasure, the golden light brick. Although this golden light brick talisman treasure wasn't very powerful, it had the effect of suppressing the heavens and the earth, making it difficult for one to break free and hard to escape. Now that Lu Chongqing had broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, he could activate his talisman treasure much faster than in the Qi refinement realm. In just a short time, the talisman in his hand soared into the sky, radiating golden light. A talisman treasure. Meng Yibai's expression drastically changed upon seeing this. He hadn't expected Lu Chongqing to still possess a talisman treasure, hidden until now. In that moment, he could no longer care about his life-bound sword pellet. He instantly propelled the flying shuttle beneath him, transforming into a streak of golden light to flee without looking back. But part of the golden light brick talisman treasure's power had already manifested. Golden light shone in all directions, as if the might of an ancient divine mountain pressed down with a rumbling force, causing his body to feel suddenly heavy and his mana sluggish. The six-winged golden silkworm, concealed in the dark, struck at that very moment, lunging out like a golden flash. What is this? Despite being a Foundation establishment great cultivator, Meng Yibai acutely sensed the incoming six-winged golden silkworm, his mana erupting around him to form a protective aura. Clang! The six-winged golden silkworm slammed into the shield, emitting a sound of metal clashing, unable to penetrate. Boom boom boom. At that moment, the myriad blue jade rulers lacking Meng Yibai's mana support began to shatter under the giant sword. Lu Chongqing immediately led his second-rank puppet to chase after Meng Yibai. Fellow Taoist, if you cease this pursuit and let me go, I swear upon my Tao heart, I will not seek revenge, and I am willing to offer this talisman treasure and 10,000 spirit stones as compensation, Meng Yibai shouted out, trapped beneath the golden light brick, his mana sluggish. I am rather curious, having disguised my appearance, how did you manage to track me down? Lu Chongqing pressed, using the remaining power of the golden light brick to suppress Meng Yibai, as he voiced his inquiry. I have an Earth-rank lower-grade pet beast, the Earth Spirit Mouse. This mouse doesn't have many talents, but it has an extremely sharp sense of smell for spiritual objects, and this sense applies in other areas as well. It had caught the scent on your body, the odor of the storage bag, so even if you changed your appearance and concealed your aura, it still couldn't be completely hidden and could be sensed approximately, Meng Yibai explained. Chapter 331. Sword Cultivator Duel. Who killed my grandson? _4. If the fellow Taoist requires, Meng would also be willing to offer this Earth Spirit Mouse. As a sword cultivator, although Meng Yibai was begging for mercy, he still stood tall, speaking neither humbly nor arrogantly. So that's how it is. Lu Chongqing nodded slightly upon hearing this. He had previously read in books about how some treasures and spiritual beasts could even sense the treasures inside another person's storage bag. He never expected that this earth spirit mouse would be able to sniff out not only a person's aura but the aura of their storage bag as well. This gave him a shiver of fear. Fortunately, he hadn't encountered a cultivator who could sense the treasures in his storage bag. Otherwise, he would have been the ultimate fat sheep. Fellow Taoist, what do you say? Meng Yibai, whose mana was nearly depleted and watching his talisman treasure dimming, felt a sense of urgency but still steadied his mental spirit and said in a deep voice, "There's nothing to say. In this situation, how can I let you go? I can't rest easy if I don't kill you." As soon as Lu Changsheng's words fell, the seven-colored giant sword thunderously slashed down. From the moment his opponent engaged him in combat, his opponent's death was certain. Fellow Taoist, we originally had no grudges, and this matter was due to my momentary impulsiveness, which offended you. I am willing to apologize to you, and you can make any demands. Moreover, my grandmother, a false core immortal of the Qingyun sect, has planted a soul seal inside my body. If you kill me, she will be informed. I am telling you this not as a threat but to let you know that if you kill me, you will only bring endless trouble upon yourself, with disadvantages outweighing the benefits. Meng Yibai forced his mana to surge, spinning the golden sword bead to attempt escape. But being suppressed by the golden brick, his movements were like being mired in a swamp, making it difficult to break free, forcing him to reactivate his talisman treasure to block the attack. At this moment, his tone became hurried, unable to maintain the calmness and dignity he previously had. Alas, that is exactly why I asked you at first if there was a misunderstanding. But unfortunately, given the chance, you did not know how to seize it. Lu Chongqing sighed. No sooner had he spoken than his eyes revealed a fierce glint, and he thrust down the seven-colored giant sword with all his might. Today, no matter the excuses, his opponent was doomed. Otherwise, being sought after by someone so prideful and willing to chase him over a small matter would make his own life unbearable. Boom, boom, boom. The forcefully activated talisman treasure and sword bead erupted, colliding constantly in front of the seven-colored giant sword. But his mana was largely expended, and he was suppressed by the golden brick. His mana sluggish. Facing such a fearsome assault, how could he possibly block it? Puchi! 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 5 spears from behind the second-rank puppet burst forth simultaneously, piercing through Meng Yibai's protective aura and then through his body like thunder. Pooh! In an instant, Meng Yibai spat blood and lost the strength to support his talisman treasure and sword bead against the attack. The next moment, the seven-colored giant sword descended like the opening of the heavens and the earth, slicing Meng Yibai's body in two, splattering blood and drenching the sky. My methods are still too few. Were it not for the mana enhancement and support from the profound origin bead, the outcome of this battle would have been uncertain. Not to mention, this flying sword isn't quite suited to me. After witnessing Meng Yibai's death, Lu Chongqing let out a breath and murmured to himself, gaining a rough understanding of his own strength. Without dwelling on it further, he instantly reached out with a man-influenced hand, capturing the opponent's treasures and body, and disappeared in an escape light. At that moment, Qingyun sect. Within a golden and dazzling magnificent palace, an old lady with aged features and graying hair suddenly felt something in her heart. A life-bound jade token appeared in her hand. But now, this life-bound jade token showed cracks. Yibai! Watching the broken life-bound token in her hand, her eyes filled with disbelief as she let out a piercing scream. Who is it? Who killed my grandson? The old lady's entire presence saturated the air, and her eyes revealed a reddish hue. Moments later, she transformed into a rainbow light and flew out of the palace. Straight away, steering a spirit boat, she turned into an escape light and shot towards the Qingyun market. Chapter 332. Great Harvest. Could the killer of my grandson be false core immortal? _1 within a cave. Lu Chongqing closed his eyes and surveyed himself with his divine sense. He saw an odd grayish aura within his body. Is this the so-called soul seal? Not only does it allow the caster to know when the person on whom the spell is cast dies or encounters an accident, but it also allows the caster to find the slayer from 1,000 miles away by transforming the soul seal into a resentful soul thread that resides within the assailant. Lu Chongqing looked at the gray aura and murmured to himself. He attempted to eradicate the gray aura with his mana. But the gray aura wriggled and twisted like a living being, proving to be obstinate. His mana was simply unable to eradicate it. Then, Lu Chongqing took out a second-rank lower-grade purification talisman and activated it on himself. A glow as pure and white as water flowed through his body, and upon sensing the gray aura, it immediately enveloped it. However, the purifying force could only suppress the gray aura to a certain extent and was unable to purify it completely. A soul seal planted by a false core immortal is indeed not so easily resolved. Must I really be forced to use a life-substituting talisman? Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed slightly as he muttered to himself. Knowing that Meng Yibai was the grandson of a false core immortal, he still dared to kill him because he had something to rely on. This reliance was the life-substituting talisman. The life-substituting talisman had the effect of fending off lethal attacks and escaping through space. Schemes like the soul seal and resentful soul threads that curse one's life could also be diverted by the life-substituting talisman to take the user's place. First, let's see if other methods can resolve this resentful soul thread. Otherwise, using this fourth-rank life-substituting talisman here would be too wasteful. Lu Chongqing took a deep breath and thought to himself. He did not wish to waste his life-saving talisman so easily and carelessly. After all, this life-substituting talisman could allow him to escape death even from a nascent soul below. To be so frightened as to use the life-substituting talisman for a yet-to-arrive false core immortal would be too disheartening. Moreover, if I really have to use the life-substituting talisman, I'd have to wait until that false core immortal comes searching. By then, I could also remember his appearance and aura to send him on his way with a book of malevolent curses and fates to settle the grudge once and for all. The book of malevolent curses and fates would require 100 years of lifespan to curse a nascent soul immortal to death. I wonder how much it would take for a false core immortal. 30 years or 50? Lu Chongqing pondered silently. Although the false core immortal is called an immortal, there is, after all, a false prefix. It is not achieved through their own cultivation but by relying on external objects and refining a demon core to advance. In comparison to a true nascent soul immortal, there's no way to compare. Whether it's in terms of strength or lifespan, they fall far short of a nascent soul immortal. Not only is their cultivation unable to progress further in this life, but their lifespan is also limited to just over 300 years. Nevertheless, this is a last resort. If it can be avoided, it's best avoided. Not only would it waste 2 of my treasures, but the death of a false core immortal might also provoke an investigation by the Qingyun sect. Lu Chongqing considered to himself. Then he closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, and began to circulate the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. He tried to transform his mana into 7 luminary sword chi to refine the resentful soul thread. After all, the 7 luminary sword chi can refine elixir toxicity, so perhaps it could refine the resentful soul thread as well. Sizzle! Sword chi enveloped Lu Changsheng's body, nearly piercing through it. The 7 luminary sword chi inside him, like serpentine dragons, wrapped around the resentful soul thread, emitting a sound like fierce fire crackling in oil. Despite being engulfed and devoured by the 7 luminary sword chi, the resentful soul thread still stubbornly twisted and writhed. Moments later. It really works! The 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, as an orthodox-level cultivation technique, has the power to refine even a false core immortal's resentful soul thread. But this refining speed is too slow. It will take at least 2 or 3 days to refine this resentful soul thread completely. In 2 or 3 days, that false core immortal might find me. Lu Chongqing opened his eyes, a trace of joy on his face. Recalling how the second-rank purification talisman had a suppressive effect on the resentful soul thread, he took out another second-rank lower-grade purification talisman and activated it on himself. As the purifying force flowed through his body towards the resentful soul thread, Lu Chongqing immediately began refining the gray aura with his 7 luminary sword chi. Indeed, under these conditions, his efficiency in refining the resentful soul thread doubled. By the time the effects of the purification talisman wore off, Lu Chongqing had refined about 1/10 to 1/5 of the gray aura. If I had a second-rank supreme purification talisman to suppress this resentful soul thread, Perhaps I could refine it quickly. After seeing the method's effectiveness, Lu Chongqing promptly took out the talisman pens and talisman materials for second-rank talismans he had bought from the marketplace from his storage bag. He began to draw a second-rank Supreme Purification Talisman, planning to rely on the talisman's assistance to rapidly refine the resentful soul thread. Having just been through a magical combat, not only was his mana spent, but his heart had not completely calmed yet. Therefore, Lu Chongqing did not start by drawing a second-rank Supreme Talisman. Instead, he first drew a second-rank middle-grade Purification Talisman to recover his touch and calm his heart. An hour later, Lu Chongqing held the talisman pen and slowly outlined a second-rank middle-grade Purification Talisman, infusing it with mana. The talisman paper radiated with a white light, surging forth and bringing the talisman to form. After completing this talisman, Lu Chongqing did not rest. He began drawing a second-rank upper-grade Purification Talisman. It took Lu Chongqing about half an hour to finish drawing this second-rank upper-grade Purification Talisman. Talisman making is such. The higher the grade of the talisman being drawn, the more difficult and complex it becomes, and the more time and mana it consumes. However, Lu Chongqing not only possessed a maxed-out talisman-making skill at the second rank, he also had the profound origin bead, acting as a second dantian. Inside it, he stored 9 times his own mana, which kept his mana nearly inexhaustible and spared him the worry of insufficient mana. Chapter 333. Great Harvest. Could the killer of my grandson be false core immortal? Moreover, having broken through to foundation establishment, Lu Chongqing was not so easily fatigued in his mental spirit just by drawing a few talismans. Phew! With the feel gained from just now by drawing 2 talismans, Lu Chongqing took a deep breath, his expression serious, and began to draw a second-rank Supreme Purification Talisman. Currently, for drawing second-rank Superior Grade Talisman, he had a 98% chance of success. But for the second-rank Supreme Talisman, he only had about a 70 to 80% chance. He didn't dare claim he could succeed 100% of the time. Lu Chongqing, holding the talisman brush, slowly started to draw. The mana from within his body flowed unceasingly through the second-rank brush, outlining on the talisman paper, making the paper constantly bloom with colors and forming mysterious runes. An hour later, Lu Chongqing looked at the second-rank Supreme Talisman he had successfully drawn, a faint smile appearing on his face. He then picked up the talisman and applied the Purification Talisman to himself. Instantly, the talisman's white light flourished, illuminating the cave as if it were daytime. The purifying force, like tidal waves, surged into Lu Chongqing's body, enveloping and purifying the strands of malevolent spirits. In this process, the strands were directly purified by the talisman. Lu Chongqing felt that, with just 5 or 6 second-rank Supreme Purification Talismans, he could directly purify these malevolent spirit strands. Lu Chongqing didn't think too much and quickly began to circulate the 7 Luminaries' Freedom Scripture. With the 7 Luminary Sword Chi in coordination with the Purification Talisman, he refined the wisp of malevolent spirit strand. Half an hour later, the strand of malevolent spirit inside Lu Chongqing was directly refined by 80%. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing didn't continue drawing second-rank Supreme Purification Talismans. He directly used the second-rank Superior Grade Talisman he had just drawn. With the help of the purifying power of this Superior Grade Talisman, Lu Chongqing directly refined the remaining strands of the malevolent spirit. After the refining was complete, Lu Chongqing used his divine sense and the remaining second-rank middle-grade purification talismans to check again and confirm. Ensuring that the malevolent spirit strand within his body was refined and there were no other issues, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Glancing at the 6-winged golden silkworm, which was absorbing the residual blood of Meng Yibai's corpse. "Let's go!" Lu Chongqing beckoned, recalling the 6-winged golden silkworm. Then a fireball technique shot out, burning Meng Xiaobai's body to ashes and causing the cave to collapse. Only then did he take out an escape talisman and quickly depart. After continuously fleeing for several hundred miles, Lu Chongqing finally started to rest. He took out 2 elixir medicines and swallowed them to restore his physical strength and mana. Only then did he start to sort through Meng Yibai's storage bag to see what gains he had made. "This is a sword cultivator, huh?" Apart from a flying sword and a life-bound sword pellet, There is only one tortoise shell magic artifact. He doesn't have any other magic artifacts. Lu Chongqing glanced at the storage bag, giving it a cursory sweep with his divine sense. He discovered that surprisingly, there were no magic artifacts inside, just spirit stones, spiritual medicine, and various elixir medicines. Immediately afterward, Lu Chongqing set aside the spirit stones, spiritual medicines, and various precious materials. He picked up a medicine bottle, sniffed the aroma and nodded. This should be origin nurturing elixir, and there are still 7 pills, not bad. This should be harmonizing energy elixir. Lu Chongqing evaluated each elixir medicine bottle one by one. Just then, as Lu Chongqing opened a porcelain bottle, he looked at the pill inside, and his pupils couldn't help but constrict. He immediately poured the pill into his palm to take a closer look. It really is a foundation establishment elixir. Why would he have a foundation establishment elixir on him? Lu Chongqing looked at this foundation establishment elixir with a little surprise and delight. He really hadn't expected Meng Yibai to have a foundation establishment elixir on him. He had been thinking about getting a genuine foundation establishment elixir for Lu Miaoge. After all, with Lu Miaoge's talent, wanting to make a breakthrough in foundation establishment without a foundation establishment elixir was almost impossible. So he planned, once Lu Miaoge reached Qi refinement perfection, to visit the 3 great immortal cities to see if he could get a foundation establishment elixir through some channel or at an auction. Never did he expect to find what he sought without putting much effort into it, and inadvertently obtaining a foundation establishment elixir from Meng Yibai. Moreover, it was exactly the genuine foundation establishment elixir he needed, not some inferior product. Now that I have the foundation establishment elixir as well as the 3 Suns elixir and foundation establishment spirit objects, Sister Miaoge's foundation establishment should be secure. Lu Chongqing didn't think too much about where Meng Yibai got the foundation establishment elixir from. He was simply grateful for the kind person's gift. He carefully stored the foundation establishment elixir, preparing to give it to Lu Miaoge when the time came. After all, she was currently his only wife with hopes of achieving foundation establishment. If he had the ability to assist her, he would naturally lend a hand. For Lu Miaoyun, Chu Zhenjin, and Lu Miaohuan, he currently had no way to assist them. After clearing up the storage bag, Lu Chongqing opened the spiritual pet bag. He immediately saw a palm-sized golden-furred, endearingly clumsy hamster. A hamster. Lu Chongqing saw this innocuous, somewhat cute golden hamster and was stunned. After all, in the cultivation world, he had seen many ferocious demon beasts. Suddenly seeing such a harmless and endearingly clumsy hamster really caught him off guard. Is this the Earth Spirit Mouse? Lu Chongqing looked at the golden hamster and immediately knew, this must be the Earth-rank low-grade bloodline demon beast, the Earth Spirit Mouse, that Meng Yibai had mentioned. It was relying on this Earth Spirit Mouse that the other party had detected his scent, seeing through his disguise. Lu Chongqing took the beast control token from the storage bag into his hands. Then, with a subtle movement of his mental spirit, he released the golden hamster from the spiritual pet bag. Squeak, squeak, squeak. When the little hamster appeared and saw Lu Chongqing, it displayed fear and trepidation. This demon beast, although possessing an earth-grade bloodline, was primarily skilled in its sense of smell and used for treasure hunting. It was not combat-oriented and was quite timid. Now with only late-stage first-grade power, the hamster naturally felt fear and trepidation in the presence of Lu Chongqing, a foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, Lu Chongqing was holding in his hand the beast control token that decided its fate. Throughout my life adrift as a mouse, I have only regretted not finding a worthy master. Now that I have met one, if you would not reject me, I am willing to acknowledge you as my adoptive father. Chapter 334. Great Harvest. Could the killer of my grandson be false core immortal? The golden hamster looked at Lu Chongqing, knelt on both legs, and made a gesture of bowing with its hands. Through the beast control token, it also sent a mental communication. Lu Chongqing received this mental communication and looked at the little hamster in front of him, somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected that this demon beast would possess such intelligence. Like his own 6-winged golden silkworm, despite being of heavenly grade bloodline, it utterly lacked any intelligence. All it knew was to kill, kill, kill. This is indeed the two extremes. Lu Chongqing smiled, picked up the hamster in front of him to inspect it, and gave it a couple of rubs. The golden fur was like silk, very comfortable to the touch. This earth spirit mouse has an extremely keen sense of smell for heaven and earth spiritual objects. If one is exploring a secret realm or dungeon, having such a demon beast can easily double the efficiency. What a pity I hardly ever run dungeons. Lu Chongqing looked at the hamster and smacked his lips. But he didn't feel it was a waste. This treasure-seeking mouse was quite good for the family. Moreover, if he didn't use it, he could at least sell it for tens of thousands of spirit stones later on. However, what demon beast's egg is this? Lu Chongqing put the hamster back into the spiritual pet bag. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, a pale green egg, the size of a watermelon, appeared. When he checked the spiritual pet bag, he saw that besides the earth spirit mouse, there was also a pet beast egg. But looking at the egg's appearance, he couldn't discern which demon beast's egg it was. Being in the spiritual pet bag of a second-generation cultivator, it mustn't be an ordinary demon beast's egg. Lu Chongqing held the egg and examined it for a few moments. He could tell that there were normal life signs within. But it would take some time before it could hatch. He put the spiritual pet bag away again, planning to study it later. Although there are only just over 6,000 spirit stones, and there are no other magic artifacts. But the talisman treasure, foundation establishment elixir, earth spirit mouse, and this pet egg are also great gains. Lu Chongqing roughly tallied the spoils of this encounter. 51 middle-grade spirit stones. 1,372 lower-grade spirit stones. Spiritual medicine, materials, elixir medicines, worth 4,000 to 5,000 spirit stones. Then there were the talisman treasure, the golden flying sword, the life-bound sword pellet, the flying shuttle, as well as the foundation establishment elixir, the earth spirit mouse, and the pet egg. Several hours later. A streak of escape light cut through the air, descending from the sky. It arrived at the place where Meng Yibai and Lu Chongqing had fought. Yibai should have fallen here. The old crone stood on the spirit boat, her eyes emitting a faint glow, surveying the surroundings. After a while, her expression turned extremely grave. As a sword cultivator, Yibai was invincible at his level, and with the blue jade ruler talisman I gave him for self-defense, he could even escape from those in the late stages of foundation establishment. Yet not only has he fallen here, but the soul seal I planted inside him has also disappeared. Could it be that the person who killed Yibai is a false core immortal? The old crone's face was serious, her eyes slightly vacant as she murmured to herself. She could only deduce that her grandson had died here from some residual auras, but could not understand the specific circumstances. The absence of the soul seal and vengeful spirits made her realize that the person who killed her grandson was not simple. It was very likely a false core cultivator. But the next moment, she shook her head slightly, feeling it was unlikely to be a false core cultivator. If it were a false core cultivator, they wouldn't have left behind so much residue of a magical duel. Moreover, even if her grandson was audacious and recklessly confident in his abilities to overcome all challenges, he would not have provoked a false core immortal. If it were a foundation establishment cultivator, the old crone's expression grew even graver. Realizing that if a foundation establishment cultivator had killed her grandson and dealt with the vengeful spirit thread, then this indicated that the opponent was extraordinary. Behind them could very well be a false core immortal, or even a nascent soul immortal. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to kill her grandson. Alas, I warned Yibai many times, being too rigid can lead to breakage. Those who advance too boldly retreat quickly. The true strength of an unsheathed green peak lies in its concealment. Cultivating the sword Dao is not about blindly seeking sharpness. The old crone, with hands clasped behind her back, suddenly sighed, murmured to herself, and stooped a little more. At this moment, even though her heart was filled with myriad feelings of outrage and hatred, she had nowhere to vent them. Furthermore, guessing that the person who killed her grandson was no small fry also made her wary. After all, she had only a few decades of life left. The entire family relied on her, the old ancestor, for support. Now that Meng Yibai, the pillar of the family's future, was dead, she, as the old ancestor, had to keep supporting it so that the family lineage would continue. Yibai was serving as the record chief in the marketplace. Why would he suddenly be here, fighting with someone? The old crone paused for a moment, her eyes squinted into slits, still pondering her grandson's affairs. Even though she was apprehensive, she couldn't simply give up and ignore the revenge for her grandson's death. Suddenly, the old crone controlled her spirit boat and flew toward the Qingyun market. She intended to investigate the reason her grandson left the market and why he ended up in combat. Chapter 335. The Seven Luminary Star Sword. Second Transformation Peach Blossom Goo. _1 Lady Meng arrived at the Qingyun market and began to inquire about the recent circumstances of her grandson, Meng Yibai, and whether anything had happened within the marketplace. Since the Qingyun market was established by the Qingyun sect, she, as a false core immortal, naturally found it quite effortless to obtain this kind of information. Before long, she had a general understanding of her grandson's recent situation and the latest developments in the marketplace. Among these, she sharply picked up on a piece of information. Xiaofan was making her attempt at foundation establishment in the Qingyun market. Moreover, Xiaofan was not attempting foundation establishment alone. She was also co-renting a cave dwelling with a man to make the attempt. Upon learning this news, Lady Meng realized in her heart that her grandson's death from an external conflict could very well be related to this matter. She knew her grandson's temperament very well, and was aware of his pursuit of Xiaofan. It was she who first brought it up, hoping her grandson could take Fairy Shiyu as his cultivation partner. If her grandson knew that Xiaofan had come to the Qingyun market for foundation establishment, he would surely go to offer his congratulations. But upon seeing Xiaofan being intimate with another man, sharing a room, feelings of jealousy and even murderous intent towards the man would surely arise. Xiaofan. Lady Meng's complexion turned somewhat unsightly. Unexpectedly, the matter had somehow become entangled with Xiaofan. The lead pointed back to Xiaofan. However, even knowing the matter was related to Xiaofan and could be investigated through her, she dared not go to Xiaofan to inquire. For one, she herself was not in the right in this matter. If a man could share a room and attempt foundation establishment with Xiaofan, even if they were not cultivation partners, their relationship was certainly not shallow. In such a situation, her grandson getting into trouble due to jealousy and meeting his demise was simply courting death. Seeking her out herself might even offend Xiaofan. She was certainly not afraid of Xiaofan, but Xiaofan's status was special. She had Yun Wanshang, a core formation master, as her mentor. Even as a false core immortal, she dared not offend the esteemed Kaiyun true immortal. After all, this was a true nascent soul immortal. Especially since the Kaiyun true immortal had real power within the sect and was extremely protective of her own. Just a year ago, she even drew swords with Qiang Peak over matters concerning her disciple, Xiaofan. With such a temperament, Lady Meng knew she could not provoke her. If this true immortal of Kaiyun learned of the matter and targeted her, one strike aimed at her, and she feared she would have to prepare her last rites in advance. Furthermore, learning that the person had just broken through to the foundation establishment confirmed her previous suspicions. The assailant behind her grandson's slaying must have had someone else supporting him, most likely a false core immortal, or even a nascent soul immortal. Otherwise, how could a person who had just achieved foundation establishment possibly defeat her grandson, let alone slay him? Sigh. After having a general understanding of the cause and effect, Lady Meng let out a deep sigh. Her stature dejected, she left the Qingyun market in her spirit boat, heading back to the Qingyun sect. She planned to spend the following days peacefully within the Qingyun sect. This flying sword is indeed a bit more suited to me than the red-robed young man's spiritual artifact flying sword. Lu Chongqing spoke after refining Meng Yibai's golden flying sword, toying with it for a while. But it's also because I possess a Gungjin body constitution, which makes this flying sword more compatible with me, he added. If I want to possess a truly suitable spiritual sword, I'll need to employ an artifact refiner to forge a spiritual sword that encompasses both yin and yang and the 5 elements, Lu observed. Practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, Lu Chongqing was naturally very clear about what kind of spiritual sword he needed to maximize his strength. It was difficult to acquire such a spiritual sword through purchase or pillage, as most flying swords in the cultivation world were of a single attribute or had 2 or 3 attributes. It was rare to find one with both yin and yang and the 5 elements. One had to commission an artifact refiner to forge it. When I have some spare money later on, I'll hire someone to forge one, Lu Chongqing decided as he stowed away the flying sword, thinking to himself. He wasn't too concerned about it. This kind of flying sword was, after all, just a transitional spiritual artifact. During the Foundation establishment stage, his life-bound spiritual artifact was the Seven Luminaries Heart Lamp. Once this lamp was forged, his strength could rise to another level. As for the flying sword, when he broke through to core formation, within the third level of the Seven Luminaries Great Freedom Sword scripture, there was a set called Seven Luminary Star Sword, consisting of magical treasures flying swords of various different attributes. He could forge the Sun Solar Sword, the Lunar Solar Sword, the Venus Solar Sword, the Jupiter Solar Sword, the Saturn Solar Sword, the Mars Solar Sword, and the Terran Solar Sword, 7 magical treasures flying swords of differing attributes. This set of magical treasures flying swords, when paired with the Seven Luminaries Great Freedom Sword scripture, complemented each other perfectly, amplifying their power significantly. They could also turn into 64 sword shadows to form the Seven Luminaries Star Sword formation. Once this sword formation was complete, even at the initial stage of core formation, he could easily suppress a mid-nascent soul stage, and might even overpower someone at the core formation late stage. Still, I'm only at Foundation establishment, and magical treasures are far beyond my reach. Lu Chongqing shook his head, not dwelling further on the subject. He took out a jade slip map, poured his mana into it, and checked his current location. He was about 2 days' travel from Qingzhou Mountain. Although the spiteful spirit threads have been refined, I still don't know if Meng Yibai's false core elder has any other means to track me down. Therefore, to be safe, I better wander outside for a while longer, not hurrying back to Qingzhou Mountain, to avoid attracting trouble, he pondered. After checking the map, Lu Chongqing decided to spend the next 10 days to half a month observing the surroundings before returning. Confirming that Meng Yibai's elder could not find him was prudent before going back. Otherwise, involving Qingzhou Mountain and the Hongya marketplace would be unfortunate. Sigh, it seems I really must limit my excursions, he reflected. Chapter 336. The Seven Luminary Star Sword. Second Transformation Peach Blossom Goo. It's one thing to kill ordinary robber cultivators, but killing those second-generation cultivators with influential backgrounds might bring serious trouble. Lu Chongqing sighed. He made up his mind that after this trip home, he would focus on making money and nurturing his child, settling his own foundation. Otherwise, encountering more people like Meng Yibai might bring trouble to his family. Moreover, he needed to invest more effort into raising his child and education. If not, even if he could establish a family, it would be troublesome if the child grew up improperly. Just as Lu Chongqing was about to find a place to rest, he felt a faint throbbing in his glabella. The peach blossom goo has completed its transformation and ascended to the second transformation. The next moment, Lu Chongqing knew what this trembling sensation was about. It was his peach blossom goo reaching ascension. This peach blossom goo had already peaked at the first transformation. But due to the limitations of his own cultivation level, it had been unable to transform and ascend to the second transformation. At the very moment he achieved foundation establishment, the peach blossom goo in his glabella began its transformation and ascension. Now, a month had passed, and the peach blossom goo had completed its transformation, successfully ascending to the second transformation. The ascension of the peach blossom goo to the second transformation didn't come with significant changes. Just an enhancement of its 3 original effects. This made his peach blossom luck even more prosperous. The peach blossom goo improved his appearance and charisma when attracting the opposite sex, as well as its proactive effect, enhancing the affliction of the 5 aggregates peach blossom poison. With the peach blossom gus ascension, my peach blossom luck has increased even further. I'd better go out less. Otherwise, I might encounter peach blossom luck the moment I step out of the door. Lu Chongqing stroked his chin and chuckled lightly. Immediately, he descended toward a large mountain in front of him, planning to pause here for half a month, to see if the false core immortal backing Meng Yibai would find him. If they did come looking, he would proceed as planned, fleeing with a life-substituting talisman and settling scores using the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. If not, naturally that would be best. After visiting the true immortal Du at the Qingyun market, Xiaofan didn't delay and returned directly to the Qingyun sect. Upon her arrival at the sect, she headed straight for Kaiyun Peak. She went to voir her master at the magnificent palace at the very peak. As soon as she arrived in front of the grand hall, Xiaofan saw on the stairs a woman clad in colorful clouds, her hair done up in a cloud bun, with an appearance as stunning as a heavenly maiden, noble and gorgeous. It was her master, Yun Wansheng. Apparently, her master knew she had returned and was waiting for her here. Master. Xiaofan immediately greeted her with a respectful curtsy. You have not disappointed your teacher, Yun Wansheng said, with a faint smile on her face as she looked at her disciple. She had received early news from the real immortal Du at Qingyun market of Xiaofan's success in foundation establishment. She also knew that Xiaofan was not alone in her breakthrough. She had undergone foundation establishment together with Lu Chongqing. After hearing this news, she felt reassured on the one hand, yet also experienced an indescribable complexity. It was reassuring that Xiaofan had overcome her emotional ordeal, reached a complete state of mind, and succeeded in foundation establishment. The complexity was due to the situation between Xiaofan and Lu Chongqing. Although she had been prepared for this, actually learning that Lu Chongqing and Xiaofan underwent foundation establishment together still left her feeling complex. This meant that her connection with Lu Chongqing was completely severed. Upon learning of Lu Chongqing's foundation establishment, she felt an inexplicable irritability. She was afraid that Lu Chongqing would activate the jade pendant to contact her. After all, when she had given the jade pendant to Lu Chongqing, she had said that once he achieved foundation establishment, she would give him a chance. But now that Lu Chongqing and Xiaofan had formed a bond and taken that step together, she didn't know how to deal with the situation. Fortunately, there had been no movement from the jade pendant. Yet this also brought some displeasure to her heart. Although she had already decided in her heart, even if Lu Chongqing activated the jade pendant, she wouldn't respond. However, even though she would ignore it, the fact that Lu Chongqing had succeeded in foundation establishment and didn't activate the jade pendant to contact her annoyed her quite a bit. She wanted to ask Lu Chongqing what he meant by that. Did he look down on her? She was a nascent soul immortal, offering such an unparalleled opportunity, and yet he didn't know to cherish and seize it. Master, I have still disappointed you, Xiaofan said softly, pursing her lips. Yun Wansheng was slightly startled upon hearing this. She then examined Xiaofan carefully, immediately noticing that Xiaofan's magical aura was slightly amiss. As Xiaofan's master, she naturally knew that the foundation base her disciple sought to condense was the supreme and mysterious Moon Dao Foundation. This foundation base was quite impressive even among perfect foundation bases, not only for its robust foundation of mana but also for complementing Xiaofan's constitution. But what she observed at the moment was not like a perfect foundation base in Xiaofan's magical aura. She immediately grasped Xiaofan's wrist, which was as white as jade, to examine her condition. She quickly saw that atop the perfect moon-white Dao platform in Xiaofan's dantian, there was a clearly visible and significant crack. This? Yun Wansheng was taken aback. She had not expected her disciple's foundation establishment to be a success, and that the supreme and mysterious Moon Dao Foundation had been condensed, yet there were flaws in the Dao Foundation. Why has this happened? Yun Wansheng asked Xiaofan. Although she had not cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique, she had studied it. She knew that this cultivation technique placed great emphasis on the state of mind. If the state of mind was not complete, foundation establishment would be difficult. And there was no such thing as achieving foundation establishment but with a flawed foundation base. Moreover, to have condensed a perfect foundation base and still have flaws was something she had never seen before. Master, it was only during the breakthrough in foundation establishment that I truly understood the real meaning of cloud without emotion, moon without emotion in the first layer of supreme forgetful love. Where clouds and moon converge, the clouds envelop the moon illuminates the clouds, both with a semblance of separation and connection, one cold and silent, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless. This represents cloud without emotion, moon without emotion. Chapter 337. The Seven Luminaries Star Sword. Second Transformation Peach Blossom Goo. Disciple started off wrong. This also led to Disciple's accidental success in foundation establishment, yet the Dao Foundation is flawed. Xiaofan slowly conveyed her own situation and her understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique to her master. What a Yun Wuqing Mingyue without love! Yun Wansheng couldn't help but sigh upon hearing this. She had previously seen through the layer of the supreme forgetful love technique that cloud and moon rely on each other. This is how she had instructed Xiaofan. But she hadn't expected this interdependence to mean emotional detachment despite desire. She really didn't know how to evaluate this cultivation technique. She nodded and said, "Shiyu, rest assured, a damaged Tao foundation is not irreparable. As a teacher, I also know of several rare natural treasures that have the effect of repairing the Tao foundation, and I will find them for you when the time comes." Yun Wansheng said so. Xiaofan was not only her direct disciple. In her view, this cultivation mistake and the damage to the Tao foundation were also related to her as a teacher. Initially, when she instructed Xiaofan in her cultivation, she did not show the clear path. It was also because of her guidance that Xiaofan took the wrong path. Master, disciple considers this to be a blessing in disguise. Xiaofan gently shook her head, and a bright and gentle smile appeared on her cool face as the ice and snow melted away. Yun Wansheng looked at her disciple and was slightly taken aback upon hearing these words. One reason being that she didn't fully understand her disciple's meaning. Another was that it had been a long time since she had seen Xiaofan smile like this. After mastering the supreme forgetful love technique, although Xiaofan was not entirely cold-faced in front of her master, her expression only became somewhat gentler and was not usually like this. This made her realize that there must have been significant changes in her disciple following this foundation establishment. Master, although there are flaws in this foundation, it has led me to understand the true essence of the supreme forgetful love technique. I have also realized the meaning of the second level, cloud with affection, moon with affection. If your disciple can cultivate this level to perfection, there is hope to completely restore the Tao foundation. Xiaofan said. She knew she couldn't hide the damage to her Tao foundation from her master, Yun Wansheng, so she was upfront about it. But the fact that Lu Chongxing could repair the Tao foundation was too astonishing. Therefore, she chose to attribute this to the supreme forgetful love technique. In the future, when her Tao foundation was restored to perfection, even taken a step further, she could have a reason to explain it. Moreover, she wanted to continue descending the mountain to cultivate with Lu Chongxing and needed her master Yun Wansheng's approval. It wasn't just about such cultivation in the marketplace. In the Qingyun sect, after a disciple succeeds in foundation establishment, the sect also arranges tasks. Even if she was the disciple of a nascent soul immortal. So she needed to speak openly about it to ask for her master's approval, to temporarily put aside her duties. Cloud with affection, moon with affection, repairing the Tao foundation on your own. Yun Wansheng was somewhat shocked upon hearing this. The supreme forgetful love technique seemed even more mysterious and profound in her heart. She wondered whether it was right or wrong to let Xiaofan choose this cultivation technique initially. After all, even with her vision as a nascent soul immortal, she had not yet fathomed the true meaning of this technique. One can imagine its difficulty in cultivation. Based on the disciple's understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique's second level, cloud with affection, moon with affection. With the cloud's accompaniment, the moon shines more brightly, and with the moon's illumination, the cloud appears more lively and graceful. To people on the ground, both reflect each other's brilliance, creating a picture-perfect beauty in the azure sky. Therefore, Xiaofan continued. She slowly expressed her understanding of the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. The first level is desire without affection, making people forget love upon foundation establishment. The second level, however, fills the heart with affection beneath the veneer of forgetfulness. Yun Wansheng, as a nascent soul immortal, already had an understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique. Now, having heard her disciple's words, she instantly understood the meaning and the key points. After thinking it over, she found the supreme forgetful love deeply profound and elusive, hard to fully comprehend at once. There was a hint of recognizing the mountains as mountains, then not as mountains and finally as mountains again. Shiyu, do you plan to descend the mountain again to cultivate with the help of that Lu Chongxing? Yun Wansheng also understood why her disciple had shared so much with her. It wasn't just a matter of reporting to her as a teacher. It was also about setting out her path of cultivation. Please, Master. Approve. Xiaofan bowed with her hands clasped. Yun Wansheng did not speak but looked at her disciple. She had come to terms with her own issues with Lu Chongxing. However, seeing her disciple increasingly involved with Lu Chongxing for the sake of cultivation, she couldn't help but be concerned. She wondered if her disciple could truly move on and achieve the true essence of supreme forgetfulness. Moreover, in cultivation, cause and effect are important. The debt of cultivation and the grace of being saved, Xiaofan had repaid with the Sun-Moon Tao Foundation. But if the cultivation continued like this, how would she repay the debt and resolve the cause and effect? Their eyes met. Looking into Xiaofan's clear water-like eyes, as serene as the 9 heavens bright moon, Yun Wansheng finally nodded. "I permit it," she said. "Take the token from your teacher, go to the record hall to register your cultivation level, and then be exempted from sect duties." Yun Wansheng took out a token and gave these instructions. "Thank you, master." Xiaofan expressed her gratitude respectfully. Shiyu, the second level is cloud with affection, moon with affection, but the third level, cloud without affection, moon without affection, may well be the true supreme forgetfulness. Having listened to Xiaofan's words, Yun Wansheng also had a deeper understanding of the later stages of the supreme forgetful love technique and advised accordingly. "Please rest assured, master." Xiaofan understood her master's intentions and replied with a radiant smile. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.